there, and welcome to Star Wars Music Minute, where we celebrate the music and sound of Star Wars 5 cinematic minutes at a time. I'm Chrysanthi Tan, you can call me Xanthi, and today we're talking about A New Hope, minutes 91 through 95. Oh, this is a big one. It's a big set of minutes. We have the Vader Obi-Wan confrontation, Obi-Wan's death, and the beginning of the TIE Fighter attack. And today I'm super excited to be joined by Father David and Trevor Mowry, brothers.
Hello, Chrysanthi. Hey, everybody out in podcast land.
Hello.
I reached out to Father David after hearing his minute on the last season of Star Wars Minute, and he immediately nominated his brother, an oboist, to join us. So
I told Xanthi, you're going to need a professional musician who is going to be able to speak your language if we're going to do a deep dive on the music, because I'm good enough to pick out like leitmotifs, but you start talking about, I don't know, keys and time signatures, and I'm just out to sea.
Well, even if you hadn't, I would have horned my way in on this thing anyhow.
We would have found each other.
It's two of the best things you could possibly talk about in the same place. So, yeah, you couldn't have kept me away. So you might as well have invited me.
Yeah.
Save yourself the time.
Well, I'm glad you're both here. And I will say that music's not about keys and time signatures and all of that. It's about the feeling. Truly.
Oh, well, good. I've got lots of feelings then. I can talk about those.
Yeah. So you're right on target. It's going to be great. Let's warm up by just hearing some of this.
I've been waiting for you, Obi-Wan. We meet again at last. The circle is now complete. When I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master.
Only a master of evil, Darth.
Oh my god. All right. I'm warm.
So good.
What do you think of the thing Vader actually says there? Like, now I am the master. Is that how that works?
Well, I mean, the council never officially recognized him as a master, right? We know that now.
We do know that now.
That's
Clearly,
why
it's
when
been
he left
what's
Obi-Wan,
driving him this entire time.
When he left Obi-Wan, he was the learner because he hadn't been made a master. It was outrageous. It was unfair. But now he's gone to Palpatine's totally legit Jedi Master Academy and has a certificate of completion that he has up on his wall as D. Vader, Jedi Master.
He went to a degree farm to get his Jedi Master's.
Moisture. Yeah.
Oh,
Trying to make a moisture farm joke here.
It's there somewhere.
It's somewhere. Someone else can finish that for me. Just to state the obvious, there's no music here, and there's no music for pretty much this entire duel.
In a way, I mean, I kind of thought listening to this whole stretch of the movie without watching it, just listening to the audio was so interesting. I never really experienced it that way. So listening to it just by itself, I mean, it doesn't need music because to me, it's already a piece that Ben Burtt has composed. And I even went really geeky and thought about, well, what kind of piece would this be? And to me, it's a trio sonata for 2 lightsabers, ventilator, and a basso continuo of a planet-killing machine.
I was hoping you would put in the Death Star thrumming there.
Yeah, absolutely. And hear me out. So a trio sonata was really prevalent during the Baroque period. Think Bach, Handel, those guys. You have 2 solo like treble pitch instruments, high instruments, which
like
converse back and forth, or they work in tandem, or they disagree. You have a lower instrument that fills out the trio that sort of acts as a counterweight to the 2 higher instruments. And then you have accompaniment, usually like a harpsichord or a low stringed instrument that kind of provides some texture. Mm-hmm. So we have our 2 soloists, the 2 lightsabers. We have the ventilator kind of providing some texture to that, a counterweight going all through that, and then you've got the, perhaps the most difficult piece of the puzzle if you were to stage a performance of this, the giant planet-killing machine, to kind of fill out the texture in the background. So, I mean, to me, it doesn't need music because it's already a very avant-garde kind of trio sonata.
That is really interesting, because one of the thoughts that I had in listening to the audio play version of this minute, just listening to the sound, was the constancy of Vader's breathing underneath the action. And without the music, it creates this sense of Darth Vader as an implacable foe, as just this constant presence bearing down on Ben Kenobi throughout the entire scene. And I love how that is the foundation for, like you said, these two lightsabers disagreeing with each other in their competing solo lines.
Oh, so many things here. Okay. So first I'll say that we're still following the unofficial rule of Star Wars, which is when a lightsaber is out, there's no music, which was something that George Lucas wanted to have happen. So because, just like Trevor was saying, the lightsaber itself, it's musical in itself. So we don't hear, so far in this whole movie, anytime a lightsaber has been out, whether it's Luke training or, any of those times, there's been no music. It's just the music of the lightsaber. So.
Wow. I don't think I ever really caught on that was a consistent thing.
You only notice it when you do what I do.
Yeah, well, yeah. Of all people, you would know. Do you know how long
good.
Into the franchise does that last for? Do you know the first time when that rule gets broken?
I think probably in this film. I think it might be at the end of the duel if you count when the music kicks in there.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. But also, I'll say that the constancy of Vader's breathing, it never struck me as, I don't see Vader as a foe, basically. And I didn't realize that I didn't see him as a foe until I was an adult. But I've always felt that way, though. I've never been scared of Vader, and I've never considered Vader to be like a bad guy. Not to say that he's like a good guy, but sort of the concept of like good guys and bad guys is hard for me to grasp sometimes, especially since, like, I don't know, Vader is Anakin inside. He's Anakin inside. That's how I see Vader. And the suit, which of course sounds menacing and it lets you know of its presence, like, I think about what it would be like to live inside of that suit and be that person that has to rely on that life support and have this constant loud reminder of the fact that you are mortally reliant on this suit, on the Emperor, on this life, this whole thing. Like, I think it's just as much of a burden. I think it's a huge burden on Vader himself.
It certainly becomes that as we unpack the story of Anakin in the following movies, and the suit does take on that burden, and I would say kind of imprisoning aspect of it at the very end of episode 3, because while we do get the audience satisfying moment of hearing the for the first time in that movie, there's also a lot of tragedy behind that, because we saw what happened in order to get to that moment. And so there's both that, I recognize the thing, but also, oh boy, that's a bad thing for him. I always, whenever I go back to Star Wars, I like to live for that 2 hours or so in the world where this is the only Star Wars movie that exists. And
was that ever a reality for you? Were you introduced to them one at a time?
I mean, I always think so for us.
I think we got what I remember is we had, I think, the pre-special edition VHSs for a hot minute, and then the special editions started coming out. So at least I think for us growing up, and Trevor, correct me if I'm wrong, I only have a memory of the special edition trilogy burned into our brains through repeat watchings because of shared time having stomach bugs and just watching Star Wars all day long.
Or not having stomach bugs, because what else would you watch?
Exactly.
You can only watch Star Wars if you have a stomach bug.
Yeah, so Trevor and I are special edition kids. So
Yeah.
it subsisted on the original trilogy for years before Episode 1 came out. So in my imagination, anyway, it's still something I have to make an effort to do to remember. Oh, right, episodes 1 through 3 add the pathos and the backstory. Oh, okay, right.
Oh, it's so interesting. It's just fascinating talking to different people because A New Hope is
You can say
everyone
old
comes
people,
to it from
Zandy.
such a different place. What was that?
You can say old people.
No,
It's okay.
I don't mean that. I think
People
the main
from a different time. I call David old all the time. I'm Father David.
a more
It's true.
civilized time.
A more civilized. Yeah, there we go. A more civilized David.
No, I think a lot of it has to do with like the family that you grow up in and like whether your parents get you into Star Wars or not. And my parents were not Star Wars or they're not Star Wars people, so
Mm-hmm.
like it's not like they sat us down and went, okay, we're gonna introduce you to Star Wars now. No, I saw Return
Don't
of the
blink
Jedi
for the
first.
next
So
2
like
hours.
the first thing the first thing I saw was like I've always known Vader as he's redeemed by
Right.
Luke. Yeah.
Mhm.
Conflicted Vader.
Sure.
Yeah. So that's my introduction to Vader.
Well, Xanthi, I love that you've introduced me to this idea of there being no music while the lightsaber is going, because I think, and I'm sure you've discussed this with previous guests, but I think that is why the sound of the lightsaber is so firmly cemented in the popular imagination. It's the only thing you're hearing, and you're drawn into this super cool thing on screen. It's a laser sword, for crying out loud, but all the sound design around it, starting with the lack of music, adds to the weight and the realism of the thing. I mean, just the activation that we see with Obi-Wan, just that sound of the lightsaber activating just triggers something primal in me. I'm a kid again watching this movie for the first time.
Well, yeah, when you're a kid, that's how you play Star Wars. You pick up a stick and you start making the lightsaber sounds with your mouth.
Yeah, and
You
it's
know,
so
that's-
different from like a sword. Like it's
Yeah.
the thing I like about the lightsaber sound, now that we're talking about that, is that unlike a sword, wherein like the sound comes from the clashing, the lightsaber has its own sound, even when it's just passively being held. Like there is a steady state that doesn't require combat or doesn't require violence. It just
Yeah.
is, and the
And even
it
if
and
you-
that silence is not silent.
And even if you flourish it, that changes the sound too. And I love in this duel in particular, I love the chattering sound of the lightsabers against each other. I feel like maybe in the other movies we don't get that as much. There's something about that
Clashing.
really seems to stand out in this one.
Yeah,
They're really
because
like,
here they lock up. The lightsabers seem to lock up more in like more
Yeah.
acrobatic fights. It's sort of like they're striking more, and it's more quick. You know. I think.
yeah. I think you're right. That's they spend more time like in contact with each
Mhm.
other.
Because I think this movie borrows more from Errol Flynn style movies, where the hero and the villain of the week are going to have their rapiers locked against each other so they can engage in witty repartee. And so that's what Lucas is drawing on for these movies. And then you get the more flourished acrobatic fights, which are Errol Flynn in a different way, where you've got people swinging from everything and jumping to incredible heights. And the contact of the sabers is much quicker because it's much more about speed and precision of strikes. And then in the sequel trilogy, they're just trying to kill each other. They are just overhead power strikes. I am going to absolutely myrtleize you with this thing.
I don't know. Some of them I feel like do show a lot of showy spins and stuff.
Mm-hmm. There's a little bit of that, but I think especially of Kylo and Rey's fight in the
in the
forest,
sequels.
and then their fight in the Death Star wreckage, where Rey is just trying to kill a man.
She's got her teeth bared.
Yeah.
Got an angry, concentrated look.
So
fantastic.
those styles of fighting don't have the same kind of crossed swords my old enemy, we meet again kind of cinematography and fight choreography.
I know a lot of it's because you have Alec Guinness, who's getting on in years, and David Prowse, who can't see worth a darn in the big Darth Vader suit,
But what's
trying
the
to do the
canon
lightsaber.
reason?
Right. Well, but I like that, my canon reason is that it's more kind of like the old samurai movies that Lucas was influenced by. And these fights, like with the katana, there's only like one strike in the duel and then it's over. One person wins and the other, And I like that this version of a lightsaber fight is kind of like that, where you're not doing anything flashy, you're just trying not to get touched by the laser sword because that's it. As soon as
Those
you
seem
do,
like the most frustrating fights. Like, I can't stand fights that are just like one round and that's it. Just one round. I'm like, give me best of 3. Let's play it out a little bit
Come on,
longer.
yeah.
Jeez.
But that's why Darth Vader is tapping on Obi-Wan's cloak. Like, no, all right, now come on, get back up. We got
Right.
another round. All right,
Always
I'm
get
up
back
1.
up.
Come on, you're leaving me hanging here. The people want more.
So I think it's because it's not really a fight. Like, Obi-Wan goes
Right.
in knowing like there is no intention of actually dueling. Obi-Wan knows exactly what he's doing. Like he already accepts his fate like long before this moment. He knows it's his destiny, and I think Vader also knows that too. I see Vader as reluctant. Like, I think Vader is reluctant here. Like, he kind of doesn't want to deal with this. Though I feel like Vader just goes through a lot of motions, especially in this film where Tarkin is clearly like running Vader has more in common with Obi-Wan than Vader has in common with Tarkin, for sure. Like, in just the Imperial side of things, Vader is the one that's like your hokey like your, all these things about like your silly religion and whatever. Like, and Vader's always defending the Force, and it's coming off as like he's not really in the right conference room here. Everyone's like, tone down your Force stuff. Jeez.
Are you saying that Tarkin is the Imperial foil to Han then? Because Han's the
Yeah.
one on.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Oh boy, now I'm really sorry we don't get a scene where Tarkin and Han interact.
I've never
I wanna
thought
see
about that, but yeah.
They're both contributors to r/Force atheists, so they're constantly trading memes back and forth on the holonet.
Yeah. Tarkin, I think, like, right before this scene, Vader says, or he expresses to Tarkin and the other officer that he senses the presence of his old master. So he senses the presence of Obi-Wan, and Tarkin's like, we need to get rid of him immediately. Like, we gotta kill him. And at that point, Vader says, I must deal with him alone, or something like that. He's like, I need to take care of it, basically. And part of that can just be like, obviously, because of the personal nature of their relationship, he wants to deal with it on his own. But also, I feel like I feel like Vader thinks Obi-Wan is also like too civilized to just be taken out by Tarkin. Like, I think Vader wants to do this like Force style. Like he wants to be playing in the playground of the Force here with his old master. He doesn't want Tarkin to just like have a stormtrooper just shoot him or something.
Yeah. Now, as of this recording, the Obi-Wan Kenobi show has not yet premiered on Disney Plus, so we don't know what happens in that plot line. So canonically right now, there hasn't been a continuation of the duel that Obi-Wan and Anakin started on Mustafar. And so therefore, if we're dealing with the whole canon, Anakin is eager to prove himself. He's eager to show that he is able to stand on his own 2 robotic legs against Obi-Wan, and that he is worthy of Obi-Wan's respect and the rejection that, if we're following your reading, Xanthi, on Anakin wants to reconnect with Obi-Wan. He doesn't want to actually destroy him, but he wants to show that, look, we are peers. When I left you, I was the learner. Now I'm the master. We're on the same footing here. Just validate me, man. Come on.
So if that's given that take on it, what do you think then is going through Vader's mind when he, strikes the final blow, because he doesn't hesitate for a moment. He goes right for it as soon as Obi-Wan just kind of picks his lightsaber up.
Yeah, he's willing to go for the kill. He's certainly not preserving him, but I think he's pissed when Obi-Wan disappears. Like, and I think he's also probably like, it's probably not as satisfying because Obi-Wan didn't really fight back.
Right, kind of sort of a hollow victory.
Yeah,
in a
he's
way.
like, you've gotten old, or you're an old man, you're weak.
Right.
And Ben is just relentlessly calm. Just
Yeah.
so annoying in like from a duelist point of view. But I mean, I love it for Ben. I love it for him.
So maybe right after he became a ghost, he force whispered into Darth Vader's ear, "I wanted you to do that."
What a
Run,
troll.
Luke.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, that's so
Hello
true.
there.
Yeah. That would be too much.
So anyway, Luke catches wind of what's going on, and the droids excuse themselves.
Ooh, I actually right before that happened, I had a note because we have that scene where our heroes are looking into the hangar and they're trying to figure out, okay, how do we make a move on the ship? And in the background, there continues to be no music, and we just get that background hiss of hydraulics, which I love because a lesser movie wouldn't have any kind of background noise there, because the Death Star is this big mechanical thing. It's very sterile. It's the bad guy's lair. But that little detail just gives a sense of life to what's otherwise sterile space. And that's one of the things I love about Star Wars. There's always something happening off screen that you would expect to encounter in a lived-in space. That hiss of hydraulics does nothing except establish a sense of place for the Death Star.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it makes that hangar sound huge. The way it kind of reverberates. And
Are you talking about the point where it switches the perspective, and so that we're no longer looking at the fight? We're then like where Han's like, didn't we just leave this party?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And the ambiance like completely changes. I'll just play that transition.
Didn't we just leave this party?
Yeah. So there's always something happening, even when nothing's happening. Just like the lightsaber, really.
Right. Yeah. That there is a reality that this camera is simply capturing. That there's not movie magic. We're like, oh, we plopped the camera down in this hallway, and the hydraulics happened to go off when we're getting this shot. So we just took this take because it was the best one we could get. It's wild. It's one of the things where, as much as I love John Williams, I think at times the sound design gets a little overproduced in some of the later Star Wars movies, especially in the sequel trilogy, where there's so much more music and the sounds seem much more digital and clean, and there isn't the same messiness happening in the sound design like there is in the original Star Wars.
I think that's true for all of the aspects of the sound. And I think even if we consider the sound recordings, like the recordings themselves of the orchestra are much cleaner these days, and much fewer mistakes and little artifacts that are on older recordings. And one of my favorite things has been like just listening for, the clarinets aren't synced right. Like they kind of got a little bit out of sync on that line, or like,
typical
little things where there's a little quote unquote mistake, but it's really just like a natural byproduct of humans and not having to like, I don't know, either edit or like do like so many takes, or just have, I don't know, there's such a higher standard of perfection in pretty much all areas of film. and the sound is one of those things where it's really obvious.
Yeah, there's something nice about popping in the original trilogy soundtracks, and it's so visceral. I mean, you
Mm-hmm.
feel more so than I think in most modern movies. You feel like you're right there with the orchestra, and like you said, it kind of has it's kind of more humanized in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe there's some things that would benefit from the modern approach, but there is something nice about that quality where there's something sometimes about just a little bit of grit or a little bit of roughness or some,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, even calling it an imperfection would be too much, but just
Right.
something to make it really really real.
It's like hearing the onset of like the bow stroke, or like hearing the little clicks of like, woodwind players, or like when you hear the guitar,
Yeah.
it's kind of slide along the, to a different fret or whatever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's those things that kind of ground you in this, like it's intimate, I think is what it
Yeah.
is.
There's a real person operating that thing.
Yeah.
What a
Yeah.
concept.
Yep. Yep. Another thing is like these were rough, and like the special editions or the original sound effects had to be performed by Ben Burt to to a reel, to a tape or whatever, and he had
Mm-hmm.
to do it in, was it, I can't remember, I think it may be 10-minute chunks or something. um One take. So like
Wow.
if there was a mess up, it's either 10 or 30 minutes. I think it's 10 minutes. So if you're getting to the end of like the 10, like if you were getting to the end of the 10 minutes and sort of did one sound a little bit too loud or like a tiny bit wrong or whatever, like you'd either have to start all the way over 10 minutes ago or just accept it. And so, like I've heard the sound editors
Wow.
talk about when they were redoing the sounds for the subsequent like special editions, and a lot of the sound effects were either polished or redone because there were like things that were not intended to be maybe louder than intended, or softer than intended, or just like a little bit off because of that. And so they were able to, be a little bit more precise with what things they edit.
Mm-hmm.
But then, of course, fans who fall in love with the way that it is before, even if that is imperfect in the creator's eyes, then fans will be like, it's not as loud here
It's
in this
different.
spot.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Well, good thing George Lucas never changed anything about the movies.
good. Maclunkey, yes.
Maclunkey. I forgot about Maclunkey. It's
How
been a
could
long.
you?
Oh boy.
Was that, no, please, no, is that a Patreon only special episode of Star Wars Music Minute? Just the Maclunkey episode?
No, that was,
Oh,
I got my
there's money
Greedo,
left on
I
the
got my
table,
voice doubler
Xanthi.
out and everything.
Oh, nice.
we were doing Huttese. Iconic. So then we're still hearing the amazing lightsabers and breathing. We're now 1:40 into this 5-minute clip, and lightning kind of flashes on the lightsabers. It's getting real clashy, and people are starting to look in, and this is when Leia's like, "Look." And so this is where the droids excuse themselves. And I don't know, is this because like 3PO's like, this is too adult for us to watch, or why did they leave? I don't really know.
Only R2. R2's too young.
Yeah.
No, look away, R2. This is not appropriate for such young
Yes,
photoreceptors.
to see our father.
It's rated
Yes.
CP-13. Oh,
Oh, no. Oh, dear.
sorry.
Well, but it seems to me that this is just part of, just in universe. I think this is part of 3PO's cowardly huckster character that more or less disappears in subsequent movies, but is kind of present in this movie, where he's just trying to work all the angles. And so, of course, this movie's version of 3PO is going to be crafty enough to say, aha, their backs are turned, they're distracted. Now we go to the ship because that's where we need to end up.
Oh, so 3PO as mastermind here.
Yeah, because I think he's at the point where he's trying to decide whether he cuts his losses. Now, what would happen if 3PO and R2-D2 got on the Falcon and no one else was there? Who's to say that they wouldn't just leave without them?
They have left via escape patch before.
It's true. I mean, it's established in their character arcs in this movie.
I can't argue with you there.
It's a good thing they don't move faster.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know. 3PO got his oil bath, so he's.
That's true.
Right? He's at top speed.
Mhm. R2's got his third wheel down, so he's going at his top speed of 5. I do love with the sound design for the droids, and I'm sure this has already been commented on, but in this scene, since we have them moving across the screen, the sound design is so good to make them sound like droids and not like people in costumes. All the little micro server noises for 3PO, the hum of R2D2's wheels as it's moving across this metal deck. I mean, I'm sure that costume made an awful racket as Anthony Daniels was walking around in a clomping on that soundstage. But the way that Ben Burtt has been able to marry the sound with the action just makes C-3PO seem like a real robot. That's not a man in a suit. That is a real droid that I could meet if I happened to be in the same room as him.
Yeah, the droids are. What would Star Wars be without this way that the droids sound? I don't know. It's just. It's hard to imagine because robots are done in many movies, and I don't think any movie tops Star Wars, in my book, in terms of the way the droids and the robots sound.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I'm trying to even think of another movie that has robots in it, where the robots have like, oh yeah, I remember the way that robot sounds.
Yeah, the Terminator movies, they just sound really heavy. There's just really heavy footfalls. They just kind of clank in their base forms. But then Arnold Schwarzenegger shows up and he just sounds like a human. And the T-1000 is just kind of animated goo most of the time. So they don't even sound particularly robotic. They sound strange and alien, more like horror monsters than droids or appliances.
That makes me think, do the Skynet computers think that is like Austrian accent default English, according to the Skynet computers who programmed Arnold Schwarzenegger and sent him back in time? Never thought about this before.
I haven't seen Terminator, but I'm guessing Skynet is a Terminator thing.
Yes,
that's what it's called, right? It's the evil computers that decide they have to wipe out humanity or something.
Oh, right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Great. Sounds fascinating. I'm sure there are a lot of Terminator fans listening, so yeah, I can't confirm or I can't say whether I like or dislike them.
No, but I guess by having Arnold Schwarzenegger be the Terminator, he's a robot, but he's the
Terminator?
Yeah, so he's the Terminator, but he's got fake
he's not
skin
fighting the robots.
Over
he is the robot.
Well, later on he is.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, we won't
Depends
get
on
into
which
the
movie.
Okay.
That's right. Original Terminator, Arnold Schwarzenegger is the Terminator, but he's a robot covered in a human disguise. And I think that's the movie's way around the Star Wars problem, because that way they don't have to do the sound design of him sounding like a robot all the time. They can just have Arnold Schwarzenegger on the set and only have some robot sounds as he eventually just, he loses half his face. You can see the glowing red eye underneath and so on and so on.
Wow.
Well, clearly we are the people to do the Terminator Music Minute podcast.
Yes.
Given our combined deep knowledge and affection for that film franchise.
Happy to, yes. I wonder if that exists. If it exists, have them as guests. I can vouch so far.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Maybe just one of us.
Regarding the droids, though, I think we do hear there are many Star Wars droids that do sound just like big and clanky too. But then I'm thinking there's such diversity of droids, like there's so many different kinds of droids for so many different functions, is that just by having so many, there is, I don't know, natural diversity, I guess. It's not that all of them are better. It's just that they're more detailed. So like you don't have to put all of the robot desires onto like the one robot in the film, because there's so many different ones. So you can, R2 doesn't speak in basic, and that's fine. But 3PO doesn't do the beeps and bloops, and that's fine. And they're both like amazing, aspects of the sound design, but they're different. And we love them both.
Oh yeah.
And you know your movie is lousy with robots when you can have one that literally just says gonk, and people love that.
It doesn't just say
robot that
gonk.
goes bonk.
That's a misconception.
I know,
No.
but in my heart, gonk is the only sound that matters from that droid.
Gonk is the language of love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe gonk is robot for I love you. We don't know.
I don't know though. Like in this age, if I run out of a battery and then someone has a battery to lend me, that could turn my day around. There's something to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're getting to the moment where music comes in. And it's quite, I'm debating whether I should just play it. I'll play it.
Sure.
Let's hear it.
Yeah.
Look. Come on, R2. We're going. Now's our chance. Go.
Ben?
So a lot. That's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I listened to that just on the soundtrack, the first 10 or 15 seconds of this over and over again, because there's so much that happens just in there. And the magic trick that John Williams plays, getting from Ben's Force theme to the Princess Leia theme, and all the turmoil in between, and how it goes so perfectly with Luke's anguished scream. Ah, man, it's such an incredible moment. I still don't know how John Williams did it, how we got from one to the other. There's so much packed into just a couple seconds.
Truly.
And it just sounds like, well, obviously this is the lowest moment for our heroes, and it captures that so perfectly. Everything that they've planned for the entire movie is now what? Except for Han, who's just trying to get the reward money, but he's only looking out for himself, so it's not as sympathetic for the viewer, I guess. But
so
what an incredible
what
moment.
is it for you in the music that matches the emotion of the scene? Because when I was listening to the music specifically in this moment, it struck me as dissonant with the death of Ben Kenobi. This seems awfully chipper for such a anguished moment for Luke Skywalker.
You're talking about the usage of the Princess Leia theme?
I mean, there's that leitmotif, but that's a question I also have, like, why this? But also just the general tenor of both the Force theme and the Leia theme. I would expect it something like the Death Star theme, ba 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 ba, to come in at the death of Ben Kenobi, because that it's the Death Star. Here is a death of a star.
I mean, the thing for me, and Xanthi, feel free to jump in with your thoughts. The thing about the Force theme and the Princess Leia theme is that, to me, it reminds us of what has driven the plot for the entire movie.
Okay.
It would be kind of the obvious thing to have the what is currently the Imperial theme, because we don't have the march yet, and in a way that would, to me, kind of, if the makers of the movie, if John Williams and Ben Burt and George Lucas and all the rest weren't as confident, maybe that's what we would have heard. And they would have thought, oh, you, the listener / viewer, need to be told that something bad has happened and you should feel bad. But because the movie's so well made and it's so well written, we already feel that. We don't need the music to kind of spoon feed us. And
Okay.
so, using Leia's theme, the first time we hear that is during the recording. When she
Mhm.
says this is our most desperate hour, even though it's
Mhm.
it's not clearly yet, this is, I think. She doesn't know what desperate is
Interesting.
until this moment. Um,
Yeah.
her mission was to bring Ben to Alderaan. That
Mhm.
blew up in her face, pun intended. Sorry. Um, Luke's whole part in the adventure was just going along with Ben to learn about the Force and maybe meet this pretty girl that he saw in this hologram. Um, I mean, now what is Luke supposed to do from here? Um,
Mhm.
Once again, his parent figure has been wiped out by the
Mhm.
Empire. Um, like I said, Han's the only one who's still things are still working out okay if he can manage to get out of here in one piece. Um, and there's something about the combination of the Force theme and the Princess Leia theme. Luke, when we met him, was so eager to go off and have an adventure. When he was
Mm.
staring into the twin sunset,
Staring at the
and
French horns.
yeah, and now this is the price of going on that adventure. Having this adventure has
Mm.
cost him really dearly. And so I think it's such an incredible moment because the music reminds us of how everything in the movie that has been set in motion has led us here, and how the implications now are that, now what for our heroes? Obviously, they have to get out of the Death Star alive, but after that, what are they supposed to do? And it's kind of this sinking feeling, and everything's kind of tumbling out and all mixed together. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. I'm curious to hear your thoughts about this moment here.
Yeah, so first of all, the Force theme comes in not when Ben has died yet. It's when he
Right.
kind of makes eye contact with Luke. And
Uh-huh.
it's sort of the way it comes in is it's like it's peaceful. It's like uh he is it's the epitome of like peace. Like he's making peace with his death and with
Mhm.
what's going to happen. And it's just a solo instrument at that point too. So it's also very, I don't know, kind of reminds me of like taps or something. Or um,
Mm.
actually, let me just play the beginning of it. This is on the soundtrack. It's Ben Kenobi's death / TIE fighter attack is the track. And it just
Spoiler alert.
starts. Yeah.
Like Qui-Gon's noble end, or what was it?
Yeah. So that Pitts is where it changes, but just that brief
Mhm.
Force theme at the beginning, we just have like, a violin kind of sustaining some like tremolo, and then we have that solo instrument. Clearly, that solo instrument um, is the main part of what's happening here,
Mhm.
and it is Ben's theme up
Mhm.
until here. And I mean, we also call it the Force theme, but in this movie, just when this is just one movie, Ben is the Force, basically. Like Ben represents the
Mm.
Force for
Mhm.
Luke. Um, and so later on in other films, the Force theme gets used obviously for like other Force moments and other characters, and it ends up becoming like probably the most used theme. But here, like it really connects Luke to Ben and Ben to his own end. And the Force is
Mhm.
sort of like the thing that binds them all. And it's sort of just, they're right there in the air. It actually kind of on a, uh, it's kind of, this is, I don't know what to make of this, but the rhythm of it is like different than how we normally hear the Force theme, where normally like the first note of the Force theme is more of a pickup note. And
Mhm.
here,
Mhm.
like it's normally more like, and that's the main, where the first note
Mm.
is the pickup and the main is the second note. And
Mhm.
here it's the first two notes are even. So the pickup note is part of it. For me, it conjures up like Peer Gynt Suite, Death of Ace,
Mm.
or something like that. But it it has a more stately, like somber feel, or just a more calm feel. Like it's more even. Like literally, the rhythm is more even there. It's just the most even variation of the Force theme I can imagine.
Mhm.
And then right after that, when there's that pizzicato, and then there's like a few seconds of this like really fast paced stuff that kind of launches us into Princess Leia's theme, like I see what I hear what you're hearing, Father David, with it is pretty frenetic there. And I wouldn't call it chipper, but it is very fast. I think it's like almost like a double timed Leia's theme or something. It definitely is a very intense arrangement. It's not serene solo oboe or French or English horn Leia or French horn. It's like, the violins doing stuff. And like fortissimo, and it sounds rushed. Like it is rushed, and it is like, it corresponds with them like running and doing things, and kind of lots of blasts are happening. And then if we go back to like the symbolism of Luke's journey, and how at the beginning of the film, his goal is not to become a Jedi. His goal is to escape his life, to move on, to leave the farm and do stuff. It's not necessarily a given that he's going to become a rebel. In fact, he was about to go to Imperial training, camp or whatever. So meeting Obi-Wan is like his inciting. It was the first thing that, if we are talking about the monomyth, like that's his call, Obi-Wan gave him the call to action, and then he didn't subscribe to the journey until he saw his aunt and uncle burning on the homestead. And for me, that moment on the homestead, when we see the bodies, like we hear the Force theme there. We hear the Force theme, like a really beautiful, binary sunset. And it does end with sort of like that Dies Irae, those 4 notes there. And then from then on, Luke is totally like on Team Obi-Wan. I'm joining you. Like, I'm on this. And the next step in his journey after Obi-Wan is done is like, it's almost like, okay, now Leia and this whole rebellion thing is like your next stop. Like that's what you're doing next.
Yeah. But again, I love how Trevor keeps bringing up Han, because I'm thinking of that scene that's coming up. It's not over yet. Han says, "It is for me, sister." Han, come on, dude, read the room. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a very helpful way of looking at it. I suppose it was striking to me that it was the Princess Leia theme, but I like the talk about it tying into, like Trevor said, tying into the motivating factor for the whole adventure. And also, Xanthi, what you were saying about the Force showing up at these key moments of Luke's destiny. And I'm thinking back to what Ben said the last time they had a substantive conversation: your destiny lies along a different path than mine. And this is what Ben was talking about. Ben's a Jedi, so maybe he saw this coming, and that's why he's able to accept it with such grace in the face of the face of what used to be his friend and brother.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like,
all right, I'm sold.
No, you don't have to be sold.
At this music theory analysis
No.
stuff.
No. You don't have to be sold. Yeah, I would say that it's probably just a coincidence anyway. I think it's probably just there because it sounded good. Like, I don't think these things are necessarily intentions. Just like anything that is put out there, we'll read different things into it. So, but the Force theme does tend to show up in moments where the character needs to summon some sort of like cosmic strength to like do something difficult, or think about something hard, or do something like that. So I love the Force theme.
Oh, what's not to like?
Yeah. So here we have, okay. The one thing that I do find really funny is this cymbal crash that comes up. I'll play this. It's like the water fountain is like sprinkling there.
Been splashed in the face with death.
Oh my God.
And I see the world in a new way now.
Yeah, I think that is an interesting choice. Uh, but interestingly,
Yeah.
it kind of like in the minutes or in the actual scene, it after that the doors close and the doors kind of have a similar sound. So I don't know if it's supposed to be kind of, sometimes like the sound design and the music kind of on purpose do a little song and dance with each other where you can't tell if it's one or the other, or maybe they go together or something. So I don't know.
Top this, Ben Bird. There's just some one-upmanship, maybe. But another thing that I think that's really unique about this moment is that it's one of I mean this in a good way. I don't mean it as a dig. It is, I think, one of the noisiest moments in the movie, where there is a lot happening in the score, and there's also a lot happening from the sound design aspect too, with the blaster bolts firing and it's chaos in the doors, and R2's making distress sounds too. So it almost seems that it's almost intentional that from both sides, from the music and the sound design, that there is kind of an intent for there to be just a lot of sound in this. You've been listening to it in a much more concentrated way, Xanthi. I can't think of other moments where we kind of have this big of a pileup of sounds and music that are both, I mean, almost seeming to be kind of competing with each other. Have there been any other moments like that so far where it feels as kind of big and as frenetic as this?
They are rare. I think one of the most surprising things about this score is how often the music just steps away and leaves space for the ambiance, like especially on the Death Star, like pretty much any time Imperials are talking, there's barely anything except little like stingers or like little transitions or whatnot. And in many of the conversations, there's no music except it kicks in, at key sort of parts. But I think that moments where there's more of a lull in sound are like saving up credits in the bank to pay out in moments like this. Because I think like a score is about more than its themes and what is happening in any one moment. Like the architecture of the entire score from the beginning to the end of the movie is so important in a different way. Like because we have to go along on this journey, and if it's up the entire time, like we won't appreciate the the fluctuations. And now like we've had this whole first half of this, we've had a couple minutes with no music, and so we're on a lower baseline, like we're primed for anything to happen. And so here when all this happens, it's extremely like emotional because we're not so spoiled by the music being persistent throughout the entire scene.
Yeah. Make a big withdrawal from the sound bank account right here. Nice thick wad of cash.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so great. And
even
everybody's
in
shouting and yeah.
Even in the trench run, I think there's a 5-minute section in the trench run where there's like no music actually.
On the first two runs, I think, because I remember I went to see the Chicago Symphony Orchestra play the score along with Star Wars, and I was surprised at how often I just saw the violinist just kind of chilling out. I could have sworn I saw someone reading a paper at some point, because they were for the big swaths of the movie. They were just able to let the sound effects speak for the emotional power of the movie.
Yep. And that's something that I don't think I was fully aware of until more recently, because I don't know, I remember them as being impactful, but like things like even the pod race or I don't know, just knowing when to step out is a really important thing. So continuing on, we have Ben's voice goes,
Yes.
"Run, Luke, run."
Come on, you dumb hayseed, move it.
Yeah.
Oh, I sacrificed
I
myself.
know it's
but he didn't
impressive.
get the hint.
Yes. Sorry, what were you
Hello
saying?
there. Oh, I sacrificed myself, but
Kenobi.
he didn't get the hint. Run, Luke, run.
Yeah. And I do love in the sound design how it does kind of sound like Ben's voice is coming from everywhere. It's
Hmm.
or it's very like forward. It's not coming from where he was or anything. There's something where it's like I'm not exactly sure how to articulate it, but it's very present. You know,
Mhm.
you kind of feel like you're within his voice instead of able to kind of
Mm.
locate it within the room.
Mm.
And it's got maybe just a little bit of ethereal echo to
Oh,
it,
there's
just a
definitely
hint.
reverb on
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
For sure.
So
Okay.
so
Well,
nice.
now I feel like we should listen to it. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Listen for the cymbal crash, and then listen for how there is a blast door
Okay.
afterward that kind of sounds like it as well.
Okay.
Lock the door, kid!
Run, Luke, run.
Oh yeah.
Ah,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I get what you mean
All
about
right.
that voice being very present. It's very high in the mix, so it's able to ride above everything else that's going on, which speaks to its kind of spiritual quality to it, where it is something that is able to grab Luke's attention in the midst of this big old firefight because it's happening on a different plane from what's happening in the hangar fight.
Exactly. And the like it's how it and there's many things that contribute to its omnipresence, and one of them is just being louder in the mix, like literally the amplitude of that track is raised. And then
Mm,
there's also the panning of it is sometimes you'll hear like blaster fire coming from the left side, and then you'll hear something coming kind of coming more from the right, and then
mm,
something more at like 2 o'clock. Like you can place sounds in different areas, and I know that. Well, we're not listening to the mono mix clearly, but I don't know how that was on the mono mix. But here we can hear a little bit more detail in where these sounds are coming from, and so Ben's voice there is in both ears for me, and
mhm,
like and very forward. And then of course there's the reverb, which just in itself kind of it stands as its own layer because the other sounds happening don't have the same treatment. And so normally if
mhm,
something has the same type of reverb, you would expect that they're like in the same room. And so that's why it's like important when if you're trying to do like ADR or trying to make things sound like they're in the same room, you have to give them the
mhm.
same quality of reverb because reverb is determined by the size and the shape of the space that you're in. Um, and you can't have like different kinds of reverb, one person speaking with reverb, one person speaking dry. Um, and so it really does set his voice on a completely separate plane for so many reasons.
That makes me wonder, and I'm sure this question has probably already been answered, but I don't know. Does like if you were standing in that hangar next to Luke, would you have heard "Run, Luke, Run" also, or is it just in Luke's head that Ben is speaking right here?
Hmm.
What do you think?
Don't know.
I mean, oh boy, we don't see anyone else in that shot. I don't think we just see Luke. I almost kind of it would be. I mean, if it was proportionally loud enough to be heard over all that cacophony, then you know you would maybe get a shot of stormtroopers also being like, "What the heck?" But
I'm going to make the opposite
yeah,
argument based on Empire Strikes Back because Luke has the vision of Ben Kenobi on Hoth,
yeah,
and as the vision is fading, here comes da 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 Han Solo riding through on the Tauntaun, and
right,
unless Han is like has it out for Ben Kenobi, like finally that guy, let's run him over. He comes right through where the vision was. So I think all
yeah.
of these Force connections with Ben that Luke has are all in his head. It's just something he can perceive.
He can perceive because of his sensitivity to the Force.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Whereas,
So
you
maybe
have
Vader
the
could hear it too.
Well,
he turns
look.
around, he sees the cloak on the floor.
Yeah.
Like, wait, no, what? I know you're here, Kenobi.
Is there a trapdoor under this cloak?
Well, what if we took this as not being Star Wars fans at all and just we're played this clip and then we're asked, where do you think that sound is coming from? I think if I were to hear that and just ask myself based on the sound alone where it's coming from, like I think I would say it's directed just to me. Like it's just to me. It's happening like right where my ears are. Like it's just right there. And that's sort of like it's sort of like a checkpoint that I ask myself sometimes, like where do I think that sound is coming from? Do I think it's far? Do I think it's close? Do I think it's more to the right of me? Do I think it's farther away from the other sounds I'm hearing? Or do I think it's closer than the other sounds I'm hearing? Because there's like blaster fire and there's other stuff. And here I would say that it sounds closer than the blaster fire because it completely takes over the blaster fire. And if it were farther from the blaster fire, even if it were super, super loud, it would still sound like it were farther from the blaster fire, you know? It would still still be loud, but you would also still hear blaster fire. And the fact that it's just like so even and yeah, it's like pushes other, it's like you put a piece of paper in front of your kind of field of vision and it's for a moment like blocking out the stuff that's on the other side of it rather than just being like a gigantic piece of paper on the other side of the room. That's what I think.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Plus, it'd just be super weird if everyone heard, "Run, Luke, run!"
Right. I didn't hear anything. Did you hear anything? No, nothing out of the ordinary. Just my blaster going pew pew. Yeah, that would be really weird.
Yeah, a little bit. Although Han would probably become a believer if it were that easy.
Now that's another scene I want to see. So, simple tricks and nonsense, eh? Like any time Han's trying to fall asleep, Obi-Wan just says something to wake him back up. Aren't you forgetting something? Not behavior worthy of a Jedi Knight, perhaps.
But definitely worthy of Obi-Wan Kenobi. I could totally see Obi-Wan doing that.
Absolutely.
And loving every minute of it.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not over there.
Obi-Wan was such a rule follower in his youth, and now he's just out to have fun. He's just... So here, now we are switching gears, and our heroes are heading toward the Millennium Falcon, and we hear the martial rhythm, sort of do 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 do, paired with the rebel fanfare, as it often is. And did we miss the line where Leia was like, or did we miss Leia's line where she's like, "You're brave" or whatever? Maybe, but so anyway, we get to the Falcon, and Han immediately is just like, no reverence for Ben's death at all. He's just like, I hope that old man got that tractor beam out of commission, or this is going to be a real short trip. Okay, hit it.
Good old pragmatic Han. Never change, buddy.
And you know what? I appreciate his pragmatism in many scenes where, you know, sometimes the kid just does need to get out of the way because Han needs to just get them, you know, get them going and save them. And saving and doing the actual actions matter more than saying the nice words. And that is something that, I mean, Han does well, I think.
No, there was never any love lost between Han and Obi-Wan. Even from the word go, there was clear that they were going to be uneasy allies at best.
Yeah.
As soon as Ben asked if it was a fast ship, that was it for the relationship right there.
Yeah.
Ooh,
funny.
One
That's
thing
my
you don't
wife
call
you're
into
talking about.
question. Yeah, right. It was over before it began.
Yeah, it's true. So here, the Millennium Falcon sound, moment of appropriation for how good
Falcon
that sound is.
Yes.
I could
hear,
listen to
please.
the Falcon power up forever, I think.
Yeah, forever. Yeah.
Those capacitors coming to charge, all the lights coming on. Oh, so good.
It is.
The pitch just keeps going up and up and up endlessly.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
What is that called when what is that like effect when the pitch seems to, oh my gosh. Do you know what I'm talking about, Trevor? It's like
I
a
wish I did. I don't
it's
know.
like an optical illusion, but not optical. Oh my gosh. Shepherd's tone. Shepherd's tone. that's what I'm
Shepherd's Stone.
thinking
I haven't heard of that before.
Okay, so a shepherd's tone it's like, I don't know, it's like one of the tricks that they like. It's one of the tricks from music school that I like to test on people just to mess with them. That, and also testing the like Fletcher Munson curve, doing the loudness curve test as well. But I'll just tell you about the shepherd's tone. The shepherd's tone is an auditory illusion in which you listen to it and you perceive that the pitch of something, it just keeps rising and rising. It just keeps getting higher and higher and higher. And you never hear it go down. Obviously, that's impossible because the human ear or range, it stops, it rolls off, and there's no way that could happen. But it always sounds like it's going higher and higher. I think it's a little bit sort of like how like the barber poles kind of look like it keeps going up one way.
Oh, okay.
So
it's
the
that kind of
shepherd's
equivalent
tone
for your
sounds
ears.
like that, and it's
Huh.
very trippy. Yeah.
Oh wow. I'm
And
gonna have to. I'm gonna have to
anyone
look
can
into
make
that.
it, or it might take some like expert layering to layer it in the right place. But basically, how it's made is you have multiple layers of sound going in at the same time, and they're all they're all in different places at different times, and so it's more like a chord that's constantly rising, and but also decrescendoing as it gets to the top. So like when the top note gets to the top, it goes back to the bottom, but really softly, so you don't hear that there's like any break in it. So most
wow.
of the notes are always going up, but then one at a time they cycle back.
Wow. Oh, that's so cool. I've never heard that before. I'm gonna have
Yeah.
to. I'm gonna have to find a way to listen to that.
Yeah, trip people out. They put
Oh boy.
some
Yeah.
composers put it in movies now because it's a little bit it's unsettling to hear.
Sure.
bet.
Yeah. That ain't right.
Yeah. So future me, if you remember, I'm just gonna write this down. I'll put a shepherd's tone in the background here so people on the podcast can hear it.
So yes, listener, that growing sense of unease that you felt for the last minute
Yeah.
is not your imagination.
Yeah. Cool. So, how did we talk about shepherd's tones? Okay.
The Falcon
Talking about
powering
the
out.
Falcon. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the like you said, the militant theme with rebel fanfare as our heroes make their daring escape from the death machine it's very triumphant, and it is a musical answer to Han's rather callous pondering about whether the old man got the tractor beam offline.
Yep. And here we have a striking shot that has inspired many a Star Wars YouTuber overlay. It kind of looks like that squarish, like ring light type thing.
Mm-hmm.
It looks just like you should just plop a streamer right there in the middle. That's what it looks like.
Yeah.
And I love it. It's a great shot. They couldn't have known at the time that streamers would be doing that. I mean, maybe they did. Kurzweil did. But so we have that. It's a great shot. And we blast off to hyperspace, which is just amazing. Let's
So
hear
that
that.
old man got the tractor beam out of commission, or this is going to be a real short trip. Okay, hit it!
Yeah. Oh, there's so much detail in that soundscape.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I wish my car made that sound when I turned it on. Any real vehicle just never measures up after hearing that. That's what That's what a lean, mean machine is supposed to sound like.
Millennium Falcon is the coolest car. It's all of George Lucas's experience with hot rods coming through in that moment. This thing has been tricked out the wazoo.
That's for sure.
There's so many superchargers and manifolds, and I don't know what else is, but they're all right there, right behind your head,
Right. How many
blasting.
different systems are powering up in those couple seconds and
Mhm.
going ba-doo, ba-doo, and doo, and
Mhm,
all those
mhm.
other amazing sounds.
You can like hear the different aspects of the vehicle springing to life. Like, okay, now that nav thing is on, and now this thingy is on. And luckily, this
There
is
goes
before
the disco ball coming down from the ceiling.
exactly.
The
The
seat
hollow chest,
warmers.
like the board is lighting up. Chewie's seat is warming up.
Yeah. Oh, my massage chair! Finally,
Yeah.
now I can fly.
And this is before the compressor has been put on the hyperdrive. So
Right.
no worries with that. It doesn't have to stress the system. All good. So
But you had to
here-
put the compressor in so we could hear another cool sound that the Falcon makes when it gets bypassed.
That is true. That's true.
Mhm.
So there's a new Falcon iteration to hear in the sequels. So we can thank the sequels for that.
Yeah.
So here we have like something so beautiful. It's so Han is distraught. I mean, no, sorry, not Han. Han's not distraught. No.
Nope.
Never
Child.
been, never
Nope.
will be.
Nope. Luke is distraught, and we hear the saddest little Force theme when Luke is just, I don't know, he's just sitting down. His head is sort of, he's cradling his head. He's like mourning the loss of Obi-Wan, and Leia is right there consoling him.
Mhm.
Someone like Trevor is playing this, and by someone like Trevor, I mean it starts on an oboe.
Yes. Yes, my people.
Yeah, I wrote in my notes, I have the oboe, the saddest of solos.
Yeah. Yeah. And this, I mean, this moment plays into so perfectly the oboe's traditional role in classical music, a lot of the music that it tends to play, because it has this naturally very plaintive sound. Plaintive is the nice word for it anyway.
What's the not nice word?
Piercing is the not nice word.
Oh,
In the wrong
interesting.
hands, anyway. In the wrong hands. It's not piercing here.
Okay.
But yeah, I just love. There's something about it being on the oboe that obviously resonates with me. I like that it's a half step up from when we last heard the Force theme just before Ben met his end. So there's something about that. Hang on, do I have this
That's
on?
true.
Going from even just that half step up in the ear, there's something that just kind of twists the knife just a little bit more. It's kind of just, I don't know. And this is another moment I was talking before about kind of the ramifications of going on this adventure. And this the oboe to me here is a really important link from Leia's theme and the hologram, which also was introduced by the oboe, and this moment, and kind of these two major points where, the adventure kind of first unfolds for Luke, and he sees that there's this galaxy out there, and where that has taken him now at kind of his lowest point in the movie. The oboe kind of serving this role, this plaintive quality, kind of a yearning when it's the hologram, kind of yearning for adventure, yearning for what's out there, and now that he's had a taste of it, maybe yearning a little bit for what the adventure has cost him, namely Ben. Yeah. And also, just kind of from a more practical standpoint, the oboe, I think, is an interesting choice right here because it allows the music overall to be kind of really soft in the sound mix, but because of the oboe's sound quality, you can still hear it really clearly while kind of
Piercingness.
keeping this whole moment a lot softer. And I also like that we get a little sad R2 noise here. It's like even the plucky little blue droid is down in the dumps right now. Something about that, which could come off as so silly. I don't know. To me, it kind of helps drive that home too. That even the chipper little guy is, he's sad too.
Yeah, and I think that's because we've already witnessed an emotional range with the robot, so it's not like a new weird sound.
Right.
It's like we already accept R2 as our, I don't know, our little companion.
Yeah.
Right.
What I love about this solo, I love the use of the Force theme here. It is a sad Force theme, but it's still the Force theme. The Force is still here. It's still at work. It is not completely gone with the death of Ben Kenobi. It's because Luke is sad about Ben. We get the Force theme because we've always associated with Ben. But we just heard the weird ghost voice before, so Ben doesn't seem to be all the way gone anyway. So the Force isn't gone either.
Yeah.
Yep. So okay. I'm going to ask you some questions, Trevor. And
Yes.
Oh, great. I'll get a glass of water.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, get comfortable,
Okay,
everyone.
so
if this is about the oboe, then.
So when you mentioned the oboe's piercing quality, is that sort of, is this kind of what you mean? Like it cuts through, like the timbre of it cuts through?
Yeah.
When it needs
it's
to.
an instrument, and especially, I don't mean this in an unkind way, but this this particular sound, the combination of the recording quality and the orchestra and this particular player, the sound is fairly direct, and this gets into a whole thing which would put everyone to sleep very quickly about the different regional sound concepts of oboe playing.
Please elaborate.
Cindy's like, more of this, yes. Okay, just be ruthless with cutting me off anytime because I will talk about this for the rest of the night. So, dear listeners, you may or may not know that the oboe is a double reed instrument, which means that we play on these little guys. I'm going to hold this up.
So
to
if
see
you're
you
listening,
can...
Trevor is holding a reed up to the camera.
Yeah. So
and double means
I don't even
that
know if you can see.
You can see like the wood on both sides, the top and the bottom.
Yeah. So it's two very, very thin pieces, very thin blades of a type of cane, which is similar to bamboo, tied together, which vibrate to make a sound. Not unlike the function of the human vocal cords, which is one source of kind of the inherent plaintiveness of the sound, is that it's the way the oboe creates sound is very similar to the way that we do with our voices. So it has this kind of vocal quality. In Europe, one of the distinctive things about the way they make these reeds, because most oboe players hand make their own, is that from about this point, the lower half of the wood of the reed in European style reeds is not scraped at all. It's all bark. And that tends to...
So it's thicker?
Yeah, it's thicker on that lower part. And a person who makes a so-called American style reed, which is how I was trained, you scoop out some of the wood back there with the intent of maybe mellowing the sound, of maybe tamping down some of the natural brightness of the sound. So this oboe player that we hear here and throughout the soundtrack, it's the London Symphony or Philharmonic.
London Symphony.
London Symphony. This is, I would say, a very... it has all the hallmarks of what you would expect from a British oboe player, especially from around this time when, as like we were talking about earlier, where recordings weren't as clean as we come to expect from modern equipment and from modern players. There's a little bit more, not even roughness, but there's a certain kind of visceral in-person quality that comes through, and there's not as much that's being sort of corrected after the fact, digitally. So you get this this really plaintive sound, and to me, just classic example of kind of a British sound concept. So there you go.
So are you saying a more American style way of playing this, it would not come across as direct and present. It would come across a little bit more. It would be a little bit more mellow and blend in. Is that like a
Maybe
little bit
a
more warm?
maybe a very brief demonstration is in order.
Please.
Let me
This
get-
is what
let
Xanthi
me
was
get
angling
there.
for from the beginning, Trevor. You should have just led with
Just
this.
Well,
waiting.
what would that
Yeah.
sound like?
Start with the read thing.
trying-
Yeah. Just
I'm
start with
trying
reads.
not to seem too eager to jump in with this thing. It'll take me a minute to kind of get this thing vibrating.
That's
But
right.
and all these words that we use to describe the sound are totally subjective.
Yes.
Bright, dark, this, that, plaintive, piercing. So if you, I'm not even sure. Like if you just found a recording of the New York Philharmonic or the Chicago Symphony or an American-based orchestra, it's, I guess, one way to think of it is with American-style reeds, we're maybe trying to get somewhere a little bit closer to kind of a clarinet sound. We think of the clarinet as being very dark and smooth. Not all the way there, but a little bit more in that direction. Okay, full disclaimer, no warm up or anything. I'm just going to go right on the Force theme and see what happens.
May the force be with you.
Exactly. I need it more than ever. So we're trying to, and it's up to you, the listener, to decide whether or not we're successful. Oh, yes. We're trying to maybe get some of the lower parts of the sound to have something that maybe has that isn't exclusively so
High pitched.
bright, yeah, or high. That's something a little bit more rounded. Let me play just for another couple seconds. I'll give you a little bit of Princess Leia and see if the reed's warmed up a little bit, and there's hopefully even a little bit more roundness there. So it's the kind of thing where maybe you'd be able to hear it, I think, in the 1970s. If you were comparing recordings of different orchestras and different oboe players, I think the difference would be really pronounced. Nowadays, first of all, because of the way we share information, there is a much more trend towards globalization, where players from different countries, different parts of the world, don't sound as different from each other, and that we hear people from other parts of the world and think, well, there's something of that I'd like to try to incorporate, or maybe they know what they're doing over here. But also because of how much more edited recordings tend to be and how much more polished things are, maybe some of those differences kind of are made more subtle from each other.
Yeah. So
But
were you
but an
playing?
oboe geek like me could pick out oboe players from different parts of the world. Maybe.
That's fascinating. You were playing on you only have American reeds, right?
Yeah, I mean, I could try, but I have not been trained in making. They're called short scrape reeds.
Okay.
So reeds are so personal for an oboe player because you're making them yourself and you're making them to suit you. So even if I knew the steps, it would take a long time to figure out how it was supposed to feel to play on that other kind of reed.
So it's not an insignificant difference. you make your
No,
own
and
reeds
they'll
like a lot of oboe players do, at least like professional ones, or I don't know, even like serious students make their own reeds
yeah.
as well. So does that mean you spend considerable time like every week carving
Oh
bamboo?
yeah. This desk behind me, this
Oh my
large
gosh.
oak desk, is almost entirely devoted to reed making. And I've got lots of little drawers and compartments for all my various supplies and accessories and everything. It's a remarkably analog process, given that it's 2022. Lots of hand tools and doing things just by lots and lots of repetition and experience. But it's kind of special because you get to create your own voice, really, and you really can no two pieces of plant matter are the same, so no two reeds are exactly alike. So it means if you if you've got enough of them, I've got a decent number in my case currently to get by, and you can kind of pick and choose which one suits the moment or what room you're in. Like
Hmm.
I just played on one that was maybe a little smaller feeling than I would use if I was in like a concert hall, because I wanted something that felt comfortable for right here and that wouldn't be like, too overwhelming
Plastissimo.
for anyone. Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and depending on what music you're playing and where you're playing, you can really kind of, uh, or at least even if you never 100% get there, you can always be kind of searching for exactly what you want, which is something that's really cool. Kind of the personalization and the customization that you get to do as a Noble player.
Yeah, that is I mean, violinists don't really make our own things necessarily,
You don't go
but
pluck out the horse hairs from the mane
yeah,
and,
not
and
not
string them
really.
on the bow.
But there are a lot of subtle ways that like different instruments and different bows and different, all the things that go in the strings for sure. Um, the action on your strings, like the way that,
Mm,
some people prefer a higher bridge or like a lower bridge. And there are also all these things uh, that not only contribute to a different sound, and also it's not even, there's no objective standard of like what is the better one. It's just which
right.
one, you know, I I have two different violins and I have a viola, and the viola is a completely separate instrument, so obviously I'll just compare the two violins. Like I would use them in different situations, and like all the different bows that I have. Like I'll have my one main one for things, and then some situations I'll want to use the lighter bow, or like I'll want to use,
Mm,
one that has slightly different action for certain things,
Mm.
or depending on the piece, or and they're same with strings. Like if I'm playing in an arena or something where I'm going to be amplified, like definitely will prefer different strings than if I'm acoustic and I am the amplification, just me. There are just all these different considerations that go toward not making the best sound, and also not even. It's ironic because we as players don't even hear what other people are hearing. We're hearing it from like behind the. We're not hearing it on the other side of the sound. We're
Mm.
hearing it kind of like Ben's voice coming from inside of us or like very close to
yeah.
us. And there's definitely like a distorted perception there. So like I think when players like are crafting their sound and the tools that make their sound, it really is like such a personal thing. It's not like looking in the mirror and choosing what sounds best in the, unless you're really picking things based off of recordings or something. No, we want
Yeah.
to feel it like it's what makes me feel like to my ear when I'm playing the best. It's yeah.
Yeah. And that's something that I know I struggled with, and I think a lot of Oboe players struggle with because learning to make reeds is not a very rewarding task. It can be very tedious. It can take a long time to start to see results. It certainly did for me. It took a very long time.
Yes, it did.
Long
But
time.
yes, yeah.
Long time.
I have my brother here. I can't get away with anything but the truth. Um, uh, and when you're a young player, it can be so tempting to try to replicate the sound of someone else that you've heard and who's playing you like.
Oh yeah.
But inevitably, if you try to make like that person's reed, it's not gonna, in certain ways, at least with making reeds, you have to almost let go of the sound quality as a result and focus on the function, and what's going to allow you to play the instrument the best that you can. And it can be so tempting to get drawn into, oh, I really wish I sounded like this person. And then if you try to make their reeds, then, it's not the same, or it doesn't work, or it's not like they're too big for you or too small, because you're like sinus
fit to your
cavities a
mouth,
certain
yeah.
shape, and
Yeah.
right. Your lungs are the size that they are, all this kind of stuff.
It's like
So,
making a lightsaber. It's so personal to each Jedi.
Yeah, I mean, there's something, I don't know if you've talked about this on the podcast before, but there's something about, I think, being an instrumentalist that is a little bit like having a superpower or being a Jedi or something, where on the outside, there's nothing to signify that you have this ability or anything. But then you pick up this your special device, and use it to channel your innate power into something special.
I think
And
about
I
that
know that's
so
very
often.
self-serving and self-aggrandizing,
No.
but I think there's something akin to, why being a musician is so compelling to me, and why, like, the idea of being a Jedi is also very compelling. There's something related about that to me.
Yeah, I could write a book about that.
You should. I would read that book.
It's just, I definitely, I couldn't agree more with that. And it's something that does come up on the podcast sometimes, because a lot of people come on in a defeated, or already defeated, sort of, before they even start sharing their thoughts about music. Because a lot of people feel like, I wasn't trained, so I can't really access the same thing. And on one hand, training is, an important part in a lot of musicians' journeys, but the ability to just experience music and have a relationship with music is something absolutely not relegated to just trained musicians, or so if music is like the force, the force flows through everyone. Like, the force is for everyone.
Yeah.
It's going to touch you no matter, if you decide to hone that skill and wield tools to really, like, take it to the next level or not. Like, so everyone has a sort of relationship with music, and some people decide to, just like Jedi, kind of formalize it into something that is more of a commitment and more, just taking it to a different level, or deciding to really focus on it, or devote your life to it, or something like that. That's just, it's sort of like being a Jedi. It's just deciding, it's just a different, it's just a different understanding and use of the force, or of music.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, the force is for everyone, music is for everyone. And some people have just decided to, or some people are maybe more talented in it naturally, or have certain features of their environment or mind, or, I don't know, fingers or something, that maybe make them more of a natural at it, like Anakin or whatever. But speaking of my cat Anakin just muted me. So damn it. But yeah, it's yeah. I just want to say that's, I see
Yeah.
I see
And
where you're going with that.
Yeah, and that comment where, people thinking, "Oh, I can't talk about this. I haven't been trained." I mean, that would be saying, I don't know. It'd almost be saying, like, well, I don't really understand this person because I'm not a surgeon. You don't have to. It's not about understanding, like, how the organs function, or or what makes what do this and that. It's just about how you experience it, like you said. I mean, if you have some kind of response to the music, then you are qualified to talk about that music, because that's what really matters. You don't have to be able to dissect it and break it down into its component parts to talk about it. That's
And not everyone wants to. You don't.
right.
Yeah.
Thank God. Yeah. There's nothing quicker to kill something you love than by taking it apart.
Just ask any surgeon.
Oh, jeez. Not any surgeon, hopefully.
Yeah.
Pretty sure there's rules about operating on people you love.
Oh, probably.
Yeah, I hope so.
So
I'm feeling so uplifted now from this conversation. This
Yeah.
is great.
Yeah, so
I
don't worry about all that dumb stuff you said. It's fine. I'm kidding, of course. I'm kidding.
That's very smart, Father David. Yeah, good job. Oh, yeah.
You're my brother. I have to get my digs in where I can.
I would be worried if it were otherwise.
Yeah, right.
well, it may be because like we have the death of our very first like big Jedi in Star Wars here. And also because as of recording this, Book of Boba Fett recently ended, and so we had some. Wait, did you guys watch Book of Boba Fett?
No, I've only seen the first 15 minutes of the first episode.
Ooh, okay.
Sorry.
Well, no spoilers.
Can't
Yeah,
talk
no.
about
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, no.
Wait, is this my chance to have a conversation with Xanthi while Trevor gets to be silent? Okay.
Well,
Move over.
I've just been on
I have
like
thoughts.
I'm endlessly fascinated by the Force and Jedi and what it means for certain Force wielders, assuming that the Force runs through and can potentially affect everyone. And especially since we see different Force users use the Force in different ways, since A New Hope, of course. We have, you could be a Jedi or a Sith, or you could be something completely different, like Chirrut, or you can just kind of feel the Force, but not be, or you can be like Leia, who is trained, but like not really going all the way. And, the Force runs through a lot of people. And I think a lot about what it takes and what it requires of someone to commit to the Jedi Order, and what sacrifices have to be made. And every time there's like conversation on Twitter or amongst the fandom of like what the Jedi should and shouldn't do, or what the Jedi should and shouldn't allow or have part of their tenets or whatever, I always think like that we're assuming something about it feels off to me, and I can't really articulate why. And it's something that like I don't defend the way the prequel era Jedi acted. In the end, I think they were very attached to like power and the whatever what they were doing. But I don't think it's necessarily their intentions are not necessarily what I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but what I'm trying to say is like I have always shifting thoughts about like the Jedi, and
anytime you say what the Jedi or the Force should or shouldn't be, you're putting limits on something that is supposed to be as limitless as the galaxy, the universe. And yeah, it's kind of like, who are you to say what this is or isn't, when it's supposed to encompass everything?
Well, that's why I like Luke's arc in The Last Jedi so much, where he has come to a broader understanding of the Force as coming out of the cycle of life and death that is always at work within the galaxy, and how it doesn't belong to anyone. And that's a really great philosophical stance in a movie with laser swords. So I think that's part of where the tension comes from, because as a piece of entertainment, we want the story to be exciting, which requires certain stances, certain ways of approaching problems that are at odds with Force as philosophy of life, that will allow for a full human flourishing that perhaps doesn't make for the greatest movie, at least not one named Star Wars.
Doesn't make you munch the popcorn any faster, does it?
Yeah, like if you want that, just go watch a Terrence Malick movie.
Oh my gosh.
I have to admit, I'm not familiar. What's a Terrence
Malick
movie
makes
that I might
these
have heard of?
long, slow, meditative
Okay.
movies that are they're sumptuous, but they are not the popcorn blockbusters that Steven Spielberg and George Lucas made back in the 70s and 80s.
Gotcha.
Which I think makes it easier for me to have popcorn during them, because I'm occupying myself. I would never eat popcorn during a Star Wars film. I'm on the edge of my seat.
Yeah, be focused.
Yeah, I'm focused. Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so
just like Luke needs to be focused, because we're not out of this yet, says Han. That silky smooth.
And also because this Force theme starts on the oboe, it doesn't actually finish on the oboe. It starts on the oboe, and then it passes to flute, and then it passes to clarinet, and then it goes to French horn with a violin counter melody. So that's an interesting, interesting orchestration choice there. And of course, like in orchestral literature, there are moments where a single instrument takes, the full solo, at least the phrase, at least one instance of it. And then there are also other places where there is a bit of passing, and there's like sort of it's like teamwork. They're all continuing the solo. What do you make of that? Should I play it?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Okay. Okay, here. Flute. Clarinet. French horn. Violins in the background. Oh my gosh, that changes so it's like all the instruments are, as Leia puts a blanket around Luke, all the instruments are putting a blanket around Luke.
This is like a Peter and the Wolf kind of thing, and you see the flute is R2-D2, and the clarinet is C-3PO, and the French horn is Luke.
Yeah.
And I mean, to me, at least from when the oboe starts until the French horn comes in, it's almost like an orchestrated decrescendo. It's a way to kind of bring the music softer without it actually having to get softer, because it's already really low in the mix and we don't want it to drop out of hearing. This is just a spitball idea, but you're kind of going from the most sort of brilliant sounding instrument with the oboe to the flute, which is playing with kind of like a nice kind of relaxed sound. And because it's not as high in the flute's range as it is for the oboe, it sounds a little bit more comfortable, and then it passes off to the clarinet, which is darker and mellower sounding. And then so I would want to like go back and listen again with the movie to see exactly what happens with each instrument change. Like if John Williams is trying to get out of the way for like there was nothing you could have done line, or if he's just wanting it to get really soft before the next thing that happens. And then the horn, just maybe one more reminder of Ben and the Force. And that's kind of maybe where we're starting to lead into the next event in the movie.
Yeah, because the Force theme is most powerfully established with, it's evoked in the binary sunset with the French horns playing there, and so it's the instrument of Luke's longing, that the French horn shows up when Luke wants something that he can't have. He's looking off in the sunset. He's staring at the French horns because he wants adventure, but he can't have it. Darn that Uncle Owen. And now he wants to be with Ben, but he can't have it because Ben is dead. Whoa, and he's having a big sad. And the woman who lost her entire planet has to comfort the farm boy.
Right. Well, and the violins underneath the French horn have this great kind of sighing motion to them.
I like that.
There's something really, really emotionally impactful about that too. But yeah, as has been covered in many sources, it's like, okay, yes, Luke, Ben was very important to you. The whole planet is gone.
I actually don't have a problem with that.
I mean, it's only the kind of thing where it sticks out to you when you're thinking about the movie in this very kind of broken down, moment by moment way. Like, obviously, as a kid, it never registered to me like, well, Princess Leia lost her whole planet. But when you really zero
Grief
in
is so
on the
unpredictable.
moments like that,
It unfolds in such varied ways.
Well, as Leia makes clear later on in the movie, we have no time for our sorrows. She is stuffing that way down.
Yeah, exactly.
We are going to deal with that later. Now is not the time.
Yes.
I can't afford to feel things right now.
It's like Alec Baldwin in 30 Rock. I'll just crush it in my mind vice.
Yeah, she's stuffing it down. I like what you said about the orchestrated decrescendo.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah. Point for Trevor. Good one.
I
put it up on the big board. Ding. All right, there it is.
I noticed that a lot. I think that happens a lot in these scores, and I think that is definitely something unusual. And from talking to people who have played in the orchestra on Star Wars soundtracks, they do confirm that there is a lot of rehearsal time dedicated to the dynamics, and just the mixing is done just in the music and in the performance and the orchestration, rather than necessarily just in the post-production. I mean, in other words, it's sort of, at least in these scores, in John Williams' scores, it's more, well, like an orchestra playing live would be mixing while they are playing, because just so many dynamics are baked in. And apparently that is a little bit more unusual. Like, it's more usual to do a lot more mixing afterward when there's not as much subtlety in the, in the dynamics.
Yeah. And playing even outside of John Williams, if you're rehearsing in an orchestra, as Xanthi, I'm sure you would confirm, you spend a lot of time balancing the ensemble. The composer indicated forte, a loud dynamic for, let's say, violin and timpani and trumpet. And, well, the timpani can play really loud, but there's 25 violins, and there's moments where maybe the composer writes crescendo, but also more instruments are coming in. And so you have to strategically not do as much crescendo because, again, the forces at work are kind of taking care of it. And there's a lot of that kind of work that goes on in large ensemble rehearsals. We're trying to take the directions that the composer gave all these individuals and trying to make it make sense on the broader level of the whole group, so that everything sounds clear and it sounds the way that it should.
Yeah, there's tons of that, and there's like, everyone else is piano, but my part says mezzo piano. Is that a mistake, or am I supposed to stand out here? And you kind of figure out where, what your role is and how you're supposed to blend in with other people. And there are different ways to interpret different dynamics too, depending on the different composers that you get to know. And, whether it's a solo line or a soli, or like just all in 2D unison, like, then, if you're playing piano, but it's a solo, you might employ things that make it sound a little bit more present than just the same type of piano that you would do in a big section.
Yeah. Oh, there's nothing scarier when you're playing in a big ensemble and you've got a solo coming up, but you don't know it's a solo because Sometimes the composer didn't bother to write it in, or it got left out. We at the group that I play in, we deal with that sometimes, especially if it's a new piece that hasn't been performed before, and some of these little, marking things just haven't made it into your part yet. And so you're getting ready to play, and you're kind of using your peripheral vision to look around, like, is anyone else going to
getting
play?
ready?
This is just going to be me. Okay, here we go. And that's always a heart-stopping moment. And then you write solo in big letters with your pencil in your part after that.
And practice.
Yeah. So the next person who comes across it after you can learn from your experience.
If you're nice.
Yeah. So composers out there, if you're listening, always mark your solos. At least for the oboe players, we can be a little jittery as it is.
I would say mark them for the violins too, because violins don't get as many solos as oboes, and so when they come up, it's a little bit more like, oh crap. Okay.
For the violin, say solo. Yes, really, a solo.
Yeah. And then you go,
No, really,
are you sure
we
you don't
need
want
it
to
this
just make
time.
it like the whole desk? Like we can just
Right.
desk one. Do I have
Come
to
on,
do it by myself?
you play too. I know what it
Just
says,
do it
but
with
play
me,
it with
yeah.
me anyway.
Just everyone on the right, just outside players. Let's make it.
Oh no, there's a mistake. I think you're supposed to play this, not me.
It's for second chair.
Yeah.
Orchestras. Okay, so here we have this big pivot, and here we're entering the final hurrah of this set of minutes, and we're entering the TIE fighter fight. Well, we haven't quite gotten there yet, but we're the music tells us that something different is happening.
Yeah.
And it is a little bit sparkly, a little bit twinkly. It's a little bit like this. So we have the oscillating, like.
Love the bells here.
Love them.
Yeah.
It kind of sounds like if I didn't know they were about to go into this like fight, this death.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good.
The way it just drops
that's
in.
that secretly might be my favorite part of the score of this movie. Because there are times where I will just think about that oscillating string line and the very gradual build up to that orchestra hit. There's so much anticipation that it builds because it provides you the proper context for understanding the gun turrets. Because with Luke and Han going these different directions and getting themselves settled, the music gives you that sense of, oh, we're building to something we're anticipating. This is something that is going to be a process. We're getting ready. And there's also that kind of, like you said, Xanthi, that sparkly note to it. It's optimistic. Yeah, things are bad, but there's still a chance that we can win. There's still a chance that we can get out of this, and we have time to get things set up. And it also excites the viewers of the movie. Oh, I want to see what happens. They're getting these great big guns. I want to see them fire the great big guns. What does that look like?
And to me, listening to this and trying to pinpoint why like the sparkliness is so effective, I mean, to me, it kind of puts you in the Falcon. Like all the instruments are telling you that the bad guys are coming, that they're out there, and you can look at the instruments, but you're also trying to get a visual read on them. And you would look around, and all you would see are these stars twinkling. And did I just see that star move? Is that the light from a ship? And these TIE fighters are black. They've got to be really hard to see if you're in space. And so something's out there. You know that something is headed right for you, but you don't know exactly where or when you're finally going to cross paths with it. It's so suspenseful, and the harmony is so like unstable. It really feels like it could go in any direction at any time. And all the different instruments that creep in, gets you all riled up. It's so great.
It is unstable because like, even though the oscillations remain steady for like a bar, or it might be 2 bars depending, but then they do shift and then they stay. Yeah. It's like do, 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 and then it kind of moves to another one and it stays for the same amount of time. So it's there's a bit of stability in it, but then it's like just moved. It just moved. Like, where'd it go?
It changes, but it doesn't ever resolve until we get to
Yeah.
it just shifts to something that's also unstable harmonically,
Yeah.
even though the rhythm is very regular.
Yeah, and there's this big contrast between the lower instruments that are kind of anchoring us in, like, the bad guys are coming, the do 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 do, like the heavier stuff, and then it kind of
Just doing
skips.
skalumphing down there in the lower
Exactly.
registers.
And then here the like middle section of the middle instrument, the middle ranges are kind of skipped. Like, it's not like
Yeah.
violas, and there's not like that much happening in the middle, and then it's just like the twinkly high. So it really provides like contrasting layers. It's not just like the whole balanced orchestra. And I think that kind of contributes to the sparkliness standing out, or both ends of them standing out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, leaving that
There's
big kind of space literally in the middle of the score, but there's like there should be something, there's something missing, there's something that should be there. And it's like the rhythm tells you it's gonna find you eventually. But yeah, I like that just kind of the spread of the pitches there.
The other thing the music does, it helps sell the weird geography of the Millennium Falcon, because Han climbs up and Luke climbs down, but they end up climbing into the gunwale. It's like, oh, wah, and but he went up and then he was, and so, but the music helps with that, because you're, like you say, you're oscillating and then you move into a new space with the music. And so that's the ladder. The ladder is these rungs. You're just climbing one rung after another, and all of a sudden you've moved. The heroes have shifted into a different orientation altogether.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that ladder. The ladder is very. It feels like that. Like you're still on the ladder, the same pace and everything, but the ladder shifts. And yeah, I like that visual. And I love that moment. Of course, this is the TIE fighter attack theme that we get, and it's awesome. It is the do 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 do, and we hear this in many. This is not going to be the last time we hear it at all. It's going to be used many times in future films, and other composers who compose for Star Wars will later go on. I don't know why I'm talking as if it's the 70s, but in the future, other composers writing for Star Wars will write similar things that evoke the TIE fighter attack, that are a little bit different, but still maintain a very similar emotional quality and a rhythmic, I don't know, it's like a mixed meter rhythmic pattern with staccato eighth notes and like lots of space between the rests. It's like driving. Yeah.
I've got so much that we could talk about with this. So again, just tell me to shut up if it's all getting to
Are
be
there
too
oboes
much,
in it?
No, there aren't oboes in it, but just so many. See, my whole thing is that clearly this is a terrible piece of music because you can't hear the oboe, obviously.
Or violent,
No.
violent, seriously.
Just a lot of different influences that I hear, some kind of coming back from earlier in the movie. Like you talk about the rhythm, and we get this kind of propulsive, kind of jagged rhythm a lot. Like we first hear it on the Rebel Blockade Runner, and then we get it on the Death Star, like when stormtroopers are chasing after our heroes, and kind of these accents in unpredictable places. And to me, the harmony, not so much in this spot, but the rhythm reminds me of this famous spot in Rite of Spring, where you've got these two chords stacked on top of each other. And then Stravinsky just pounds away at these and then throws in these accents at unpredictable places, which I will articulate verbally because this keyboard, you can't control the dynamics. So it's this really crunchy chord, and you get this. And there's a lot of that kind of stuff, like when like the Empire's foot soldiers are involved. And there's something about here the dun 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 dun, that rhythm kind of suggests that to me, it's kind of a holdover. It's like here's more of the Empire's goons chasing after our heroes, and then this main part, these descending thirds, I think, and the chords that kind of go along with them, and the way they kind of shift. I never been able to exactly articulate why, but there's something about this that just feels like flying in outer space to me. Probably because I primarily associate flying in outer space with this movie, but there's a weightlessness to it, like the combination of the notes. Wait, that's not right. It's like it's in space. It's got to feel like in 0G you just fall forever, and that's kind of what this feels like to me. The way the harmonies shift. There's no like bottom to it. You could just keep going and going and shifting. It's like, I guess it's like the opposite of the Shepard's tone or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like you get that feeling in your stomach, like when you go over a hill on a roller coaster and you get that moment of weightlessness. That's kind of what that sounds like to me. And there's a couple of musical influences, I think, that use kind of descending thirds, these intervals, that I think kind of encompass both halves of John Williams' background. From one of the first kind of classical oriented composers who really worked with thirds and kind of started pushing harmonic boundaries that existed at the time, was Wagner. In his huge Ring Cycle, which is a set of 4 operas that tell one story, he has a lot of themes, a lot of motifs that are based around thirds, especially descending thirds. Like the Ring itself, which was kind of an inspiration for Tolkien's Ring in The Lord of the Rings. It's this symbol of power and corruption, and it's cursed and it's bad news. The Ring kind of goes. So all the intervals in the melody have that similar kind of cascading thirds, and then the harmony are all those intervals are thirds themselves. And then another one is the theme for Valhalla, which is a symbol of power, and it's much more kind of traditional harmonically. I mean, those exact pitches are in the TIE Fighter attack here.
Oh, interesting.
And I'm not saying John Williams did that intentionally, but those are the first 4 notes of that Valhalla theme. And spoiler alert, the gods kind of turn out to be the bad guys in the Ring Cycle. And Valhalla is a symbol of their power. Right. Nobody ever thought of that before. But the other half of the coin with these descending thirds, I think, is John Coltrane, Giant Steps, which came out in 1960. And I think John Williams' father was a professional jazz musician. Xanthi, you probably know better than me. Correct me if I'm wrong.
But John Williams certainly knows his jazz.
Right. I think so. He got his career started doing arrangements for big bands in the Air Force. And I can't, the chords are too gnarly. I'm not good enough. I don't have jazz chops. Yeah.
Jazz chords are gnarly.
But the tune, why it's called Giant Steps is because the steps are thirds. So this tune starts off. And you get the idea. Those
I didn't
are wrong.
know that.
But the first set of them is if you take it down half a step, that's the end of this. So you only have to go a half step to get
Ring Theory.
Everybody go listen to Giant Steps. It's amazing, and the harmony is crazy, and the players are so skilled. They're playing so fast. But
means better.
and so just I think there's something about maybe bringing a little bit of the seeing. I don't know. I don't know if any of this is intentional, but just kind of combining the classical instrumentation and the orchestral use of those major thirds with some of these harmonies that Coltrane uses, and that, I mean, you had to think that Williams would have been familiar with, gives it such this unique sound. That's, I mean, at least that's
Yes.
kind of what stuck out to me thinking about it. At the end of the day, all that matters is that it's super exciting. But these descending thirds are just such a cool, special thing.
Yeah, I think yes. John Williams's use of thirds, especially, well, thirds and triplets are like both a big thing. Um, and this sort of planar movement, like where it's like the thirds kind of stay together a lot of the time, or there's like at least a lot of parallel, I mean, motion where it's not like, it's more like, you know what I mean? Okay, so like planar
Yeah.
motion or parallel motion is when like you keep the same distance between the notes and you shift where you're placing that collection of notes rather than
Mhm.
kind of doing like some chords maybe might be more close together, some might be the notes are more separated, some might be, have different intervals between them. John Williams often does a lot of like tight motion where it's even if it's not necessarily clearly just planar, like at least in a lot of fanfares and in a lot of other spots, it is like the thirds, the structure of the triad kind of remains like all in root position or something like that.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think you should read the book Hollywood Harmony, by the way. I think you would like that.
Hollywood Harmony.
Yeah,
I'm
by
gonna
Frank
make a
Lehman.
note of that.
Yeah.
Gonna look that up.
So, and listeners, Hollywood Harmony.
Hmm.
It's great.
Hollywood. Who's that
Frank
by?
Frank Lehman, who also made the complete catalog of the musical themes of Star Wars, which is a living document that you can get free on his website, franklehman.com/Star Wars. And everyone listening
Whoa.
should definitely check that out.
Oh
There's also
boy.
a
I know what
thematic
I'm doing with
census
all my
that says
spare
how
time
many
now.
times the themes pop up in each movie. There's little descriptions of each of the motifs, and he continually updates it. And yeah, it's a fantastic resource.
Wow. That is awesome.
Yeah. Uh,
Ooh.
Yeah, I mean, I had all those notes about Wagner and Coltrane too, but
yeah.
I just wanted to,
Let him.
let Trevor run with
very
those.
That was
Well,
generous of you. That was
well,
generous of
you
you.
know,
Thank you.
it's my job as as the experienced movies by minutes guest. Let the
Let the
kids play.
newbie.
Get
Yeah.
their sea legs. Uh,
Go on, kid. You take one.
and then mixed on top of all of this great music is the great sound design for the TIE fighters themselves. I mean, they scream in space. They are so evil. It is so clear that they are the bad guys. So they're screaming at you all the time. And even the laser blasts hiss at you at the very end. There's just that little bit of crackle and hiss at the end of the TIE fighter laser blasts that differentiated from more of the staccato machine gun fire from the Falcon, so that you're able to differentiate the two different blaster sounds. Like you have a sense of when Han and Luke are firing, and you have a sense of when the TIE fighters are screaming in. There's also mixed in there, I can hear like very early on as they come in at the angle of attack, there is very clearly like World War II propeller plane sound mixed into them as they come. There's just that diving noise of every World War II movie ever coming in on the bomber. And so again, we've moved from the samurai films with the sword fight between Darth Vader and Obi-Wan, and now we've talked about the hot rods of the Millennium Falcon taking off, and now we're in the World War II fighter footage with the bombers and the fighters swarming all around them.
I never noticed that
And
with the different like with the trail of the TIE fighter lasers.
Mm-hmm.
That's so interesting.
Well, it jumps out to me because Trevor and I played the heck out of the TIE Fighter video game, and so I
I knew
spent
it.
hours listening to
good.
TIE Fighter laser fire.
I've mentioned this many times on the podcast before. I have a theory that people who played Star Wars video games have like a really special spidey sense for the sound effects, because when you play a game and have like you just learn those sounds on like a basic level, like a one that it's drilled into you.
Mm-hmm.
I turn to video game people when I have questions about sound effects. And usually they're the ones that are like, oh yeah, that one's from Battlefront 2, or like that's the same cannon from whatever. And I'm like,
Oh wow.
wow. Okay. Yeah.
I think our video game knowledge is probably narrow but deep.
Yes. Yeah.
The
very much
X-Wing
so.
and TIE Fighter games representing a big percentage of our knowledge.
Some would say that
When-
Star Wars itself is a narrow but deep field too. Go down.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, and we can't leave out talking about the sounds of the battle, the exquisite sounds of the little targeting computer.
oh my God,
Thingies.
yes. Oh, how can we
Ah,
forget that?
So good. And like when the little, I'm sure at the time, high-tech graphic of like the little
The grid.
computerized TIE Fighter
It holds up.
unfolding and man, the sounds that computer makes, so good. Probably be super distracting in reality, trying to like focus and have the thing going like whoop, whoop,
That is the
whoop,
note
whoop.
I have. I wrote
Oh,
down,
yeah?
like, are the bleeps and bloops of the gun turrets just a little too much? I mean, could we get like rid of a third of the bleeps and bloops and still be able to communicate it? And I answer that question. No, we keep them all in. They're all perfect.
Glad you came to the right answer.
Yes.
So the screen, like that high pitched siren, well, it must be there for a reason. And I don't know exactly what that is, but if there is someone who knows exactly what if there's someone on the planet who knows what all that stuff means on the computer and the sirens,
Oh yeah.
it would be Auric fonts. So Auric fonts, if you're listening to this, let me know if there is anything you know about them. He catalogs the writing systems of Star Wars, and so he like knows all about all the different languages and writing systems and graphics that are on all the different, all the symbols on stuff. So, yeah, gotta love Star Wars fans.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The
Don't go
dialogue,
halfway.
the sound effects also, like, it does occur to me that like, or the music is also mixed in a way, or maybe even orchestrated in such a way that leaves space for the sound effects. So, which is a normal thing in film editing and in sound editing, to make sure that all the important things have space to be heard.
The
that
two
very
come
kind of
together.
punctuated quality.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then there's room to hear all the beautiful bleeps and bloops and blasts and everything.
Well, it makes those noises tell a story. It's the difference between the silence around the lightsaber fight, where there's the hum that serves as the background noise for that encounter, and here there would just be kind of the chaos of noise, fighters coming screaming in, laser blasts, and there would just be the general chaos of war. But the music gives it emotional direction, that this is now telling a story, that our heroes are hard put up against it, and there's this driving force of the bad guys who are coming screaming in with their hissing snake-like lasers trying to blow them out of the sky.
100%. And I think it's also a testament to how the music and sound manipulate the audience they shape what we take from a scene. And in a scene where we don't need that much help to understand exactly what's happening, like when Obi-Wan and Vader are facing off, in a scene where it's like fast, lots happening, lots of shooting, lots happening, like, just to see that without any sounds or to see without any music, it would be just like, all right, tell me in 2 minutes if we won or whatever. Like, I'm not sure how to interpret this mess. And so the music does keep us invested and guides us, and it like holds our hand, and we need it there. Or I need it there. I think, yeah.
This makes me think that maybe football games should have underscoring the entire time.
Oh, that would help.
Because, you could just watch the last 2 minutes and like, what's the score? Okay, that team won. The end. But, moment to moment, if you had, that's what the bands on the sides should be doing. They should be
They should be
providing
scoring,
There you
like
go.
doing live
Mhm.
scoring to the game. And then
Yeah,
each side would
yeah.
have like, they'd obviously have a different, because they're each the hero of their own story. So it would be a different
Right.
score for each
A lot
side.
of crosstalk.
Yeah.
Charles Ives conducts the Super Bowl.
Oh.
Football.
Oh. Yeah. Got a little, yeah,
Ives
polytonality
presents.
up in there. Yeah, for sure. So this 5 minutes ends midway in the TIE fighter, thing. So we'll have to finish the TIE fighter attack next week.
Yeah. When I
No, we
first was
end on a
watching the clip-
cliffhanger. The Millennium Falcon explodes.
Or does it? Yeah, when I was watching the clip, and we had the build up part, do, 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 and I knew it was getting close. I was like, "Are we gonna get there? Are we gonna get to the dogfight?" So there was already so much suspense from the music, and I was like, "Come on, come on! I want to be able to talk about the dogfight. Get there, get there, get there!" So I was so relieved. Like, yes, okay, we got some dogfight too.
See, the music was working on you.
Yeah,
Mhm.
every time it works every time.
I was just excited that this chunk of minutes we got to talk about minute 94.
Yep.
94.
All right, thank you. That was
Yeah, you're
nice
welcome.
little set
Boba
spike.
Fett.
Okay, good.
It's the coveted 94.
Okay, check
Whoever
that
gets
off.
94
the
is
meme
always
list. We
really-
did hello there. 94, long time. Okay, check. All right.
Okay.
Listeners at home, are you
on a
filling
future
out your Star
season,
Wars bingo cards?
I'll have to have you on a 66. Well, are you ready for the Star Wars Music Minute Questionnaire?
We'll find out. I guess.
Okay.
suppose.
I'm ready. I am ready.
All right. Question number 1. In exactly 3 words, what does Star Wars sound like?
Raw, triumphant heroism.
Let's say- sorry. Go
Well, I
ahead.
just because I'm a preacher by trade, so 3 words are never enough. So raw, in order to get at that lived-in feeling of the universe, that we're happening upon things that would have happened even if we didn't watch them. So there's a raw quality to it. And there's that sense of triumphant heroism here, which goes to some of the underlying philosophy that Lucas had when he made this movie. He was looking at the cinematic landscape and saying, well, this kind of stinks. Let's make something for the kids in order to inspire them. And so even though there is tragedy, there is loss, an entire planet blows up, Ben Kenobi dies, there are sacrifices made in the battle against the Death Star, still there is this sense of triumph that heroism does carry the day. And there is, for a movie made in the 1970s, it is not a 1970s movie.
And I think
Those are my 3 words.
Yeah, I think that leads in well to what I tried to come up with, which was timeless space adventure. And I think similar to what you're saying, I think with this genre, I think it's so easy and probably very tempting, I would imagine, to go completely artificial with the score, to be very genre specific with it. And I think I think what a lot of what makes these movies so impactful is that especially with the sound of it, the sound comes really from our world. You get some tweaks like in the bass player in the Cantina band has a little kind of funky something mixed in with that, which is just enough to make it sound, adjacent to our world. But the use of this music that spans multiple centuries and different influences and genres of music from our world, and kind of synthesizing them in this incredible way, where it's really exciting. It really enhances what you're seeing. It doesn't pander to you. It doesn't spoon feed you. But it's also, I think that's also why we're still talking about it, because it has kind of this timeless quality. It's an adventure that could, take place anywhere at any time, and I think the music really kind of captures that.
It's beautiful. Question number 2 is what's something related to Star Wars music or sound that you are curious about and want to learn more about?
Well, I actually already hinted to this earlier in the episode, but I'm curious how much the transition to digital sound production has changed the feel of Star Wars, because that's just where the industry has gone, and Lucas would have been at the forefront of that because he loved every new piece of technology, always wanting to push the envelope, do something new. Was the reason that he established ILM and established Skywalker Sound in order to really do as much as possible with that production sound. But what does that mean when Star Wars, the sound of Star Wars, is created in the analog era? We got Ben Burtt with a tape recorder hitting a tension wire with a wrench in order to get the sound that he needs. What happens to the sound when it becomes more and more guys sitting in a booth with headphones just playing with waveforms, and as opposed to going out and farming for sounds?
Well, it's similar to what similar to what Xanthi was saying about Ben Burtt having to record everything in these in these chunks in one go.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would imagine that that's what the orchestra had to do also at the time, at least for this first movie. They may have, for budgetary reasons and because of technological restrictions, all these cues may have been one take, and if they were going to do it again, they had to do it all again. And there's something where like, the French horn missed a note in measure 25. Let's start back at the beginning of this cue and do it all again. Whereas nowadays, I think you can probably, the French horn missed a note in that bar. Well, we've got it in a different take. We'll just drop in a note right there. And that's advantageous for a lot of reasons. But, you maybe miss out a little bit on the feeling, that feeling of a performance. At least I know personally, it doesn't feel the same when you're giving a live concert. It's like, okay, here we go. We're playing this piece, and I have one chance to either nail this, or if I miss it, that's it. Versus a recording where it's like, okay, I'm gonna give it maybe 75 or 80%.
I always play worse on recordings when I know I have a ton of takes.
It's just you have to do it differently because you have to save something in reserve in case you do it another 10 or 12 times because someone else does something that they need to go back for, or because they decide in the moment to try it a different way. So, I mean, at least I'm not trying to answer your question for you or anything, but there is kind of a more, it's a less, to me, performed feeling in modern movies, and it's a more kind of assembled score
Programmed.
or soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, programmed is a good word, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but the answer to that question would be like so multi. It would take, it would just be such, because it affects so many layers. I'll also say that, like, in this is definitely not an answer to your question because that wasn't the point of asking the question. But there, a lot of the time, or most of the time, when film scores are recorded now, they do. It's called striping, which is when instead of having the whole orchestra there at once, they will record just the violins on one day, like just the violins, and then just the oboes, just the, or just the woodwinds, then just the trumpet, kind of separate the sections. And that gives them higher control over each section. And then they'll put it together, which is an extremely different feel from when you're playing with the whole orchestra and getting to hear, like, if I'm getting to hear what the brass are doing, like what the different sections are doing. It's definitely different. It's like doing a sectional rehearsal just with you're not hearing like the different parts as much. But yeah, striping is really common nowadays.
Wow.
Yeah. Things you know when you live in LA. Yeah.
Showbiz. Yeah. Wow. Well, I think for me, I mean, I already alluded to it a little bit. I want to know everything about the players for the Cantina band, the human beings behind Figrin Dan and the modal notes, because I mean it's so good and they are so tight, and where did they get these people? Who are they? I'm also really curious about what all of these instrumentalists thought of the music at the time. If they listened to it and thought, this is going to be great, people are going to love the music from this movie for a long time, or if they're like, what the heck is this? Or if they were just too busy hanging on for dear life to even pay attention. Yeah, specifically the Cantina Band. Like, where did they get a steel drum player who could like shred like that? I mean, that's such an interesting instrument choice. I mean, was it somebody John Williams knew already? Anyway, you get the idea.
Yeah.
But the Cantina Band people are so fascinating to me in the context of this movie and the score.
There are answers to that question, and I'll also plug The Last Jedi, or on The Last Jedi season of the show, episode 11. I had the steel panist from the Canto Bight scene, which is the second time that we've heard steel pan drums in Star Wars since the Cantina Band, and he is like connected to the person, like kind of. There's like the steel panists know each other around here, and so he was, I think, recommended by someone who was maybe either the original steel panist or something like that. But yes, the steel pan stuff, the stories behind like how the steel pan parts came about and how they were like perfected are really fascinating, because they're very virtuosic parts.
Okay, so that's episode 11 of The Last Jedi season.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
it's called Steel Pans of Canto Bight, so pretty hard to miss.
Excellent.
Yeah,
nice.
There's only 2 steel panists in all of Star Wars. That's crazy. All right, I know what I'm listening to the next time I drive forward. Thank you.
And question number 3: what is a score or soundtrack that you're fond of besides anything Star Wars?
I just watched this movie last night, so in part because I knew this question was coming up, but also because I love this movie. Baby Driver by Edgar Wright has one of the best soundtracks, mostly because of how Edgar Wright operates as a film director. He is an editing director. He has all the shots in his mind and will stitch everything together in the editing room. This cut, this cut, this cut. But in that movie, I mean, the opening sequence, the opening car chase in Baby Driver, I could watch that forever. And then on the other screen would be the Millennium Falcon powering up forever. Just those two forever and ever.
Sounds
Amen.
like a fun
oh
time.
my gosh. It's great. Oh man. But the way that Edgar Wright married those shots to the bell bottoms, it's masterful. And throughout the movie, again and again, he draws on these deep cut tracks, marries them to the action. And because of the way the movie plays out, he's drawing on these deep cut tracks that are sampled by later artists. Like the big trumpet fanfare from Jump Around. Bah, bah. That comes from a different song, and we get to hear that blah blah blah, but without the whistling and the original song. We get it, and it's like, oh, this isn't the song I expected. Oh, this is fresh, but this is the original source for things. So if people haven't seen Baby Driver,
I haven't.
I highly it's an R-rated movie for a reason, so you just be prepared for that. But listen to the soundtrack and how it is incorporated into the text of the movie itself.
Ooh, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I second that. Baby Driver is such a fun movie.
2 votes for Baby Driver?
Yeah. Well, no, that's not my answer to the question. I'm just agreeing that I really like the movie.
You just approve of that answer.
Yeah, and I agree that the way the music is integrated into the movie is part of what makes it really fun.
I love when directors have a vision for how they want the music to be edited in. It makes such a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And my pick for this question is Vertigo, which is definitely one of my favorite movies, and a big reason is just because the music does take such an active role, I feel like, in the movie. And in kind of like Star Wars in some places, there are very quiet moments where the music just tells you everything you need to know about the characters. And there's just some almost overwhelming for me emotional moments in the score. And Bernard Herrmann. If you couldn't have John Williams music, Bernard Herrmann is who you would want to score your movie, in my opinion.
A good one.
It's just it's such a phenomenal movie because there's so much space for the music, and the music is just, it's incredible. And what's not to love about a nice Hitchcock movie too?
Nice. Rear Window's my favorite.
So good too.
Bernard Herrmann, yeah, that's a good picks. Good picks, crew.
So I also like the Vertigo choice. That's very nice.
Oh, the brothers co-sign each other's picks.
Isn't that nice?
It's so nice.
We make a show of getting along for the audience. Then we'll be back to fisticuffs after the camera.
Shut up, nerd.
Right. So quick rundown of the themes from this set of minutes. It's the Force theme, Leia's theme. We have the martial rhythm. We have sort of an Imperial March precursor, but you can only really hear it on the soundtrack. We have the Rebel fanfare, and we have the TIE Fighter attack. And I'm using the names that are delineated in Frank Lehman's catalog that I already told you about. Because he has the most. My little spiel is that theme names they're not official. They're just whatever the audience wants to call them. You can call it the Force theme. You can call it Ben Kenobi's theme. You can call it Binary Sunset theme. We're all referring to the same thing. But because this catalog has an internal consistency and builds upon itself and is regularly maintained, I use that resource because it's already there. So I might as well, for people who already use that, I'll use the same names. And plus, Frank Lehman's been on the show a couple times. So he
there you go.
Yeah. Win. And get his catalog. It's free. So on the soundtrack, this is Ben Kenobi's Death / TIE Fighter Attack. That's where we're at. And last but not least, where can people find you online, both of you?
You can find me at my Twitter handle. It's at Father Mowry. It's FRMOWRY. I try to put my various appearances on Movies by Minutes podcasts on my Twitter feed. You can also go to my website, fatherdavidmowry.com. Ostensibly, I have a blog there. I update it like maybe once every other year. I'm so busy. I don't have time to sit down and write. I'm sorry. But you can also find a catalog of all my various podcast appearances on my website, and you can listen to me blab about The Last Jedi, where I talked a little bit about the musical themes in that minute, which prompted Xanthi to reach out and ask me to be on this show. And then I wisely got my brother to come and help me.
Good segue.
There's not a ton out there of me personally, but what there is you can find by Googling Trevor Oboe. Benefits of
just Trevor Oboe?
Yeah, benefits of playing a less common instrument and having a less common name. You'll find me. Most of what's out there.
That's what I did.
Right, see? And it worked.
But I used your last name too.
Okay. Well, if you really want to roll the dice, just Trevor Oboe. But most of what's online about me is in the context of my employer, my day job when I'm not geeking out about Star Wars music. Is playing oboe in the United States Marine Band, which is also known as the President's Own. So if you go to YouTube and search for Marine Band or President's Own, you'll find all kinds of stuff featuring us, some of which you'll maybe hear me playing on, some of which you won't, but all of it's good. There are multiple videos of us playing. We do have violins, actually. We have a chamber orchestra. We play chamber music. We play small orchestra music. We play wind ensemble, band music, obviously. We play a lot of patriotic stuff. There are multiple performances of us playing arrangements of Star Wars music on our YouTube page. So for this particular audience, you might just go to YouTube and search Marine Band Star Wars and enjoy that. Sounds pretty good when you've got a king-size brass section at your disposal. And
it's good for Star Wars.
Helps make it sound nice and loud. You can also visit the band's website, marineband.marines.mil, MIL, and there's all kinds of information about us. You can find me on there and read my bio and all that good stuff.
And John Williams conducted the Marine Band on a couple of occasions, didn't he?
Yes. Yeah. Sorry to bury the lead. Yes, I had the chance to meet and play for John Williams. I'm gonna make myself sound.
The amount of self-restraint here is really admirable, but I could not let that stand any longer.
Look,
Thank you.
the primary mission of the band, just to provide a little context,
Has been
is
to meet John Williams.
Well, that's my primary purpose in life, clearly. But our primary mission is playing for the president at the White House and supporting state functions there. So in the course of performing those duties, we get to meet a lot of people who have a big cultural impact, a big political impact, what have you. But I have never been starstruck the way I was when we got to work with John Williams. And he could not have been sweeter. He's worked with the band numerous times. If you go on YouTube, I'm sure you'll find it. We have a whole album of our collaborations with him where he's conducting us. But I got to meet him and play for him because he wrote a piece specifically for us called For the President's Own. It's a nice little, I think it's only 3 or 4 minutes. So if you search John Williams For the President's Own, I'm sure that'll pop up. I got to be part of those recording sessions, and because of where we place our musicians, I sit in the front row, so I got to be, right there, close enough to reach out and grab that magnificent beard. But I didn't, as tempting as it was.
It's not where I was expecting you to go.
And
I like it.
just so much energy on the podium, and this was 8 years ago, maybe. So he was already well into his 80s. And so sweet with us, so humble. It was such an incredible experience. It was one of those moments where it's like, okay, all the time in the practice room, all the time at the reed desk, learning how to make reeds and hitting your head against the wall over and over again for years. Okay, this is all worth it because for the next half hour, however long it was, I get to be in the same room as John Williams and he's conducting us. So yeah, that was an all-time life highlight for sure. And speaking of which, we've been remiss. Should we not say happy 90th birthday, John Williams? Because
Yes,
he turned 90
absolutely.
earlier this week.
Yep.
So
That's right.
On the same.
I'm sure he's listening. So
He
John,
has the
happy
same
birthday
birthday as this podcast, which launched accidentally on his birthday last year.
No way.
Totally by accident.
That's perfect. Yeah.
Well, I'll go out. I'll go and get the 2 cakes then. Hold on, I'll be right.
Happy birthday.
John Williams
John
already
Williams.
ate both of them. I'm sorry. They're both
Oh
gone.
wow.
He has to
Did he
grow his
blow out
beard.
all 90 candles on both of them?
He did.
Oh wow.
180.
Wow, that is really, really cool that you had that experience. And Trevor.
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah. That
jealous
was.
at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds really delightful. On that note, you can find Star Wars Music Minute online places, starwarsmusicminute.com. You can leave a voice message at starwarsmusicminute.com/comlink. And you can, tweet at me, find me on TikTok, all of those things. I'm always bad at outros. I need to have like a solid outro for next season. I'll make that happen. But for now, I'll just say, may the force be with you. And I'll talk to you next week about the next set of minutes. And those are, see, I already botched this. What am I doing? 96 through 100 next week, same place, podcast. You know the drill, Star Wars Music Minute.
Run, Luke, run.